OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Very good morning to you this Monday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning after a very busy weekend and loads of good stuff to look forward to. Going to talk about the football, going to talk about the hurling, going to talk about everything else as well. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you getting on?
Pretty good, yeah. Drama in the Premier League, drama in the hurling, drama in the rugby.
Yeah, the rugby kind of comes at the bottom almost of the list when you get to a Monday. It's all crammed into a Friday night, Saturday. Thomond Park was amazing on Saturday, but Bramall Lane yesterday was the moment of the weekend, really.
Which of the moments during the game? The comeback, the equaliser, the post-match press conference?
David McGoldrick being David McGoldrick. David McGoldrick is going to ping in a 30-yarder very, very shortly. That is the one thing that is going to get lost in all of this, that when they were 2-0 up, he had a pop from the edge of the box. David De Gea saved it pretty easily. But we're starting to see this more and more. We had a conversation this time last week about McGoldrick and his flair. Probably not the case, but McGoldrick and his ability to ping one in from 30 yards, it is going to happen soon. I know that it is kind of a footnote on everything else that happened at the weekend, but I just wanted to get that off my chest.
McGoldrick as a partner for any of our good strikers over the last decade would have been great. Unless he wasn't this good, unless this is just a very unusual late career flowering. But it strikes me that he was always this good and we just didn't use him.
It's probably a bit of both, to be honest. Like, there's a reason why we haven't seen David McGoldrick as an established Premier League centre-forward until now as well. I don't think it's Ireland that have just kind of missed these talents. I don't think Ireland have missed these talents. I think that he's just not come through to the top tier because of the fact that it is a late season or late part of his career peak. Like, obviously, his partner in Musette yesterday was a brilliant player. When he went off, that kind of turned the game in Manchester United's favour. It's kind of even hard to put your finger on why the game actually did change for Manchester United. It's like one of those situations where it's almost kind of a roll of the dice whether or not confidence will perk up, whether or not they will be able to put together a moment of magic. And I think Brian Kerr kind of summed it up pretty well on the radio yesterday, that Brandon Williams was terrible all day and then came up with an outrageous goal to bring Manchester United back into the game. So they're the sort of strange scenarios that we seem to be getting with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He seems to be a bystander almost in what's going on in front of him. He doesn't seem to have much control over what's happening. I don't think you could blame Solskjaer too much for them going 2-0 down last night, and then you can also not give him too much credit for the comeback at the same time. So he's almost just kind of stuck between mediocrity and being a very poor manager, I think, at this point. And he has to go. Like, I really do think that it is time for Manchester United to just get rid of Solskjaer.
I was actually thinking that the comeback suggested, here's a team who hasn't quit on him. Here's like still some semblance of things that he's capable of doing and bringing from the touchline. Because there are going to be games where you go behind. Sheffield United aren't mugs, right?
They're not mugs, but you play the way you play like that for 70 minutes. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And I'm sure there was a lot of people. I didn't really go on. I put up some tweet which was kind of disparaging Manchester United. Didn't really go on afterwards. I'm sure there was like people who would be wise after the fact and saying, "Oh, Solskjaer proved you all wrong with their comeback." Like, I don't think you can give Solskjaer much credit for that comeback. I think you can give the younger players a bit of credit for the way they managed to dig in. Of course, Solskjaer bringing on Greenwood is obviously a huge positive, and that's something that he'll probably take a little bit of credit for personally, but I just think any manager could have made the appropriate switches personnel-wise. I just think that you almost kind of feel you need to try and find energy within you to slate Solskjaer too much, and then you need to find a hell of a lot of energy to give him any praise. He's just such a middling manager at this point, and I think that that's just not good enough for Manchester United.
Well, it's clearly not good enough for Man United if it's true, but there is a possibility that actually this is somebody who's learning on the job and is showing signs over the course of the first, 15 weeks of the season, that he is getting to grips with the task, that there will be setbacks for a young team. He's beginning to give youth its opportunity. Bear in mind, this is a team that is missing several of its first-choice Maria players, some of whom I hope probably, for all our sakes, don't get back in the team because we would like to watch some good football. But if you add Pogba back into the team playing well, if he comes back in and can help that team, if you don't have to pick that centre-back at the start of the game ever again, if Phil Jones maybe never plays for Manchester United again.
Especially in the back three on occasion. It's I thought Gary Neville was going to turn into the Incredible Hulk, actually run onto the pitch and just push Marcus Rashford or push Daniel James, just create some sort of kinetic energy within their body, because he was screaming down his microphone from the gantry all afternoon saying, where's the movement in the forwards? Where's the movement in the forwards? And those two things you point to have clearly been the issue that Manchester United have struggled with most over the past few months, ever since the end of the Jose Mourinho tenure. But yesterday, the thing that really got the analysis wound up was the lack of movement in the forward line. And I think at the start of the season, a lot of people would have been looking at a front three of Martial, Rashford and Daniel James as something really exciting, something that you could then start building backwards from, because at least you have a great attack, at least you have somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net, 3 people who can put the ball in the back of the net, and 2 speedy wingers outside of Marcus Rashford. And then yesterday they really kind of let them down for 70 minutes. Now Rashford did kind of come to life as the game wore on in the latter stages of the match, but 2 teenagers also scored as well. So it's kind of hard to really see what the kind of lingering positivity is from yesterday. It was a get out of jail moment for Solskjaer a little bit, I think, and Sheffield United would be gutted without that win.
Yeah, I'm sure, but then, having said all that, they were on the verge of winning the game. Yeah,
and all great teams managed to find that sort of way of doing it, but also great teams don't play as badly as Manchester United did for 70 minutes.
Well,
there's a line there.
There is a line, and they're not a great team, and I don't think anybody thinks they're a great team just yet.
No, like you can. It's not fair to compare them to Liverpool, because Liverpool are streets ahead of them at the moment, and have a far better manager, and have a far kind of more experienced player group that have been around a lot longer. But the line that is thrown out: great teams can play badly and win. When Liverpool are playing badly at the moment, they look a far better side of how Manchester United look. Again, I accept that it's not a fair comparison, but I don't think that line can be trotted out about Manchester United at this point, that they can get a result playing badly, because the playing badly thing is the thing that is the main issue.
The managerial sack race is going to heat up over the next few days.
It's going to be great.
We'll have a piece up on offtheball.com a little bit later on. We're going to talk with Kenny Cunningham after 8 o'clock. I'm going to tell you what's coming up now. Kenny's coming your way just after 8 o'clock this morning. Going to talk about Barca-Leeds, fairly titanic Munster Club hurling final victory against Ballygunner yesterday as well. That's coming up around 20 past 8. After that, sports news with John Duggan. Alan Quinlan's going to talk to us about a busy weekend of rugby, and then pits and peaks, your highlights from the weekend. You can share your pits and peaks with us. Use the hashtag OTB AM or leave a comment on the YouTube channel. Papers next.
Our job is to report the news, not to manufacture it.
Everton owner Farhad Moshiri wants the Toffees to sign Atletico Madrid and Spain striker Diego Costa, according to the Mail on Sunday.
To hell with you if you think I made it up.
The Stars supplement this morning is sack race, and they've got a picture of David Moyes. David Moyes coming back to Everton. I mean, come on. Surely not. Surely the David Moyes experiment is over.
You would have thought so, but you would have also thought that if there was one club that could potentially give David Moyes that injection to...
What to do what?
Right off into the sunset.
No.
With a little bit of
glory
left in his managerial career. Everton is that club.
No. Like, poor Everton. You just feel like they just need a little bit of help. It's like an arm around the shoulder and come on, don't worry about it. It's okay. You made about 14 mistakes in a row, but the 15th time, you're going to regret. You don't need to go back to him. You don't need to go back to him. He left you. You don't need to go back to him. He treated you badly. He left you. Don't go back.
I would be saying, do go back. He's a better alternative than Marco Silva.
But that's not the... It's like... it's not...
Who is the other...
Is a better alternative than all of the other managers in world football? Because it's the field.
You're not going to get all the man. I've just got a sneaky suspicion that David Moyes back at Everton could be a success.
Like, what's a success? Oh, we'll finish top 8 for the rest of our lives. I mean... Is that a success if for all the money that they've spent, never having any ambition to do what Leicester are doing, to cause a bit of trouble, to be exciting?
That's what David Moyes did in his previous tenure with Everton. Now, granted, he got a little bit lucky with Liverpool actually winning the Champions League on that occasion, but cracking the top 4 was their objective, and he managed to do it on one season. And they came close. They were at least they were lingering around there. Whereas this Everton side just has a tendency to kind of tank and finish 12th until kind of they go into the home stretch of the season, because they've spent so much money that they actually have a decent second string squad once injuries start mounting up in the second half of the season, and they tend to finish in the top 8 or whatever. I think they 100% have a potential to do what Leicester are doing when you look at what they've got in their squad. They don't have the manager to do it.
No.
And they don't have the belief in that manager to be able to execute to the best of their potential. David Moyes might be that guy.
He's not.
He might be that guy.
He's not.
He just might.
He's not. There's no chance he's that manager.
He really could be, though.
Where's your evidence for that? Like, that's the question.
The evidence, granted, is from his previous stints at Everton. Everything since then has been a disaster. You do kind of feel sorry for him after.
Was he okay at West Ham? Was he okay at West Ham?
Okay, maybe okay at a stretch. This is me being a kind of a lover of poetic narratives here. This is not me basing this on recent footballing achievements. I think Sunderland and Manchester United could be slightly worrying developments. His time in Spain is slightly worrying development. And these are all recent things. These are all more recent occurrences than his relative success at Everton. So I'll accept that the evidence that you mentioned there isn't on my side, and this is all based on poetry. But I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to see him go back. And I think going in the middle of a season is just a nice way for it to happen, because they could turn around to him and say, we'll give you an 18-month contract. We'll see you at the end of the 2020-21 season.
We'll see what Kenny thinks about this and all the other ones as well, because Chris Wilder's being linked with the West Ham gig. And if I was Chris Wilder, I wouldn't be taking that gig either.
No.
But anyway, so the back of the Star is firing the Ole. Except when you see Ole like that, it's Ole. Firing the Ole. But anyway, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wanted to substitute every one of his outfield players before Manchester United escaped Bramall Lane with a dramatic 3-3 draw. They've got Pluck Fodda, a picture of the Barnsley mascot, and Brendan Maher and Liam Ryan celebrating after they won yesterday. And Keane on an under-21 post. This is a story from Paul Lennon about how Robbie Keane would like to take over as the Ireland under-21 manager after Stephen Kenny goes. I presume Robbie's finished all his badges, is he? He's got his pro licence and all that stuff done, so there's no issues around that.
Not sure what his status is on that. It's an interesting one. It's hard to know where Robbie Keane is at in his managerial career so far. What did he bring? What has he brought to the Mick McCarthy setup so far? Like, we don't hear much about what Keane is doing or how effective he has been. And
a very interesting point that Paul Lennon brings up. Robbie Keane is interested in switching from his role with the senior team to under-21 Supremo, using his contract with the FAI as part of his negotiating platform. You would assume Robbie Keane's contract is the same as the manager of the senior team, that it would finish at the end of the European qualifier. You'd be wrong, Owen, if you made that assumption, because his contract actually runs to 2021. Yeah, that's I have seen that reported elsewhere over the last few weeks as well. Why was that? A key point. That is. Why did he get a contract different from the senior international manager? Was part of the senior international team? Unless the FAI have actually gone 3 steps ahead, and they were like, Robbie Keane can be the glue that holds us all together, and he will succeed Stephen Kenny after he succeeds Mick McCarthy, and then we've basically got 3 managers in a row, signed, sealed and delivered, and we can go worry about other business in our day-to-day lives rather than worrying about who's going to manage the Republic of Ireland senior team. I think it is odd that they don't give an entire ticket the same length of contract. Himself and Duffer are apparently on the 2019-2020 pro licence course, so they'll be finished around about the same time. Tim McGuinness on that course as well, so that'll be an interesting studious classroom. Yeah. Robbie down the back messing, Jim up the front, sleeves rolled up. Yeah. Or actually, would it be the other way around? Because, you know, Robbie surprising us all, not making gags and being the joker, but like being the student. Yeah, that kind of razor sharp sense of humour would be wasted as a top of the class student, I reckon. Like his career at Middlesbrough needs to be considered in all of this. It's hard to see from the story if there's any at the end of the year. Yeah, but if there's any FAI interest in this, there seems they haven't really made any sounds as to what they want to do with the Stephen Kenny post after he leaves. Who in the FAI are making that decision right now? Yeah, but that's also the other issue, and maybe Robbie Keane kind of provides an easy enough fix to that. Like Keith Andrews, you'd imagine, would also be in the mix after he was involved with Stephen Kenny in this campaign. Unless Keith goes with Kenny to the senior team, which also makes a bit of sense. Yeah, like I think we also need to, that would make sense. If that doesn't happen though, I think we need to realise that this European campaign with the under-21s is going till 2021. This has been an excellent campaign so far. Stephen Kenny will be leaving before that campaign is over. Yeah. To take him and Keith both out of the situation there, or to remove the entire backroom staff. I know that probably won't be the case. It'll probably just be the senior figures, and then to just put Robbie Keane in there, it might disrupt the rhythm a little bit. I don't know, but like obviously you have to respect people's ambitions in their own career, and if Keith Andrews feels that going in with Stephen Kenny
if he has the opportunity to do so, I know that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
It's good for his career, then you have to just say fair play to him and go for it. But you'd like to think that there would be a little bit of consistency in this 21s campaign. We never qualified for an under-21s Euro campaign. This is a great opportunity.
No, and it would be, I mean, look, it would be a great thing for Robbie Keane to be able to go out and get some tournament experience, but also
that's true, I guess.
Not having had the involvement in the campaign up to that point seemed a bit like, what's going on here?
Is the Robbie Keane factor more of a thing to an underage team?
No.
The wide-eyed, this is Robbie Keane, oh my God.
Is it? Well,
maybe
so
they're all don't even remember Robbie Keane.
I mean, they were born like way after. Well, no, they weren't. Robbie Keane's heyday was a good decade long, so look, maybe, who knows?
The Irish Daily Mail this morning is Joe's in demand. This is Joe Schmidt. He's been linked with an All Blacks backroom role. So the next All Blacks coaching ticket, says Rory Keane, could have a distinctly Irish feel to it, with Joe Schmidt, John Plumtree, I should say, and Greg Feek all potentially in the mix. So who's going to be the head coach? It's still up for decision at the moment. Ian Foster and Scott Robertson are the front runners to become Steve Hanson's successor. So obviously Joe Schmidt has said he's going to take some time away from rugby until at least June 2020. But if there's somebody of Joe Schmidt's skill set that's available as a backroom role,
I think specifically it'd be number 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Plumtree would do the forwards. Plumtree did the forwards for Schmidt for a year with Ireland. Feek obviously has just left, and Foster is going to get this gig.
You'd imagine so, yeah.
Take that for 4 years, and then they'll have their succession plan worked out, which is pretty much exactly what happened with Steve Hansen, who coached Wales in a World Cup, left after a quarter-final defeat, was due to take a gig in Super Rugby with Graham Henry as part of his backroom team, alongside Joe Schmidt, funnily enough, and then New Zealand crapped out of the World Cup and Henry got the main gig, took Steve Hansen with him, and then obviously Hansen stood there for 8 years biding his time until he got it and stayed on.
If the All Blacks make this happen, it's just a match made in heaven, really, if they manage to have Schmidt in as their assistant coach. Because
they've no tests in between now and then.
Between now and
July.
June, July, yeah.
So, like, it works perfectly. And the reason they're staying in Ireland is for school, is what Schmidt's been saying in interviews recently. So, look, we actually have Joe Schmidt in the studio a little bit later on today. We'll put this to him.
Yeah, I can't see, on the All Black side of things, I just can't see this being anything but a bad idea. It's perfect. It's the Schmidt and Foster relationship. Like, have they worked together before? It's Ian Foster as head coach would be an interesting thing. I think that he kind of fulfilled the role of assistant coach quite well. The sort of, you don't quite know what exactly his impact has been. You'd imagine it's been quite significant, but he's kind of been that even more brash than Steve Hansen when he's been out there, which is saying something, and perhaps he'll be even better as a head coach when he is kind of the leader in that coaching ticket. But Schmidt as an assistant just kind of has a weird feel to it as well.
Yeah, but like Hansen did the same thing.
Yeah,
that's if you want the All Black gig, there's a clear pathway that the New Zealand Rugby Union have laid down, and one of those is come and work in Super Rugby for us. That would seem like not the best use of Joe Schmidt's experiences. So the front cover of the Irish Times this morning is a great picture of a man called Liam Brady. Liam Brady celebrates winning the senior men's event at the National Cross Country Championships at Abbottstown yesterday. Solskjaer sees some good and very poor display, which we've been talking about already, and Anglo-Irish back-to-back clashes will be pivotal, says Jerry Thornley over his summation of the weekend, which mostly is focused on the Munster Saracens game.
Racing.
Munster Racing, looking forward to Saracens.
Back page of the London Times is Arsenal setting their sights on Mikel Arteta. Emery on the brink amid fan rebellion, and Everton are weighing up how to replace struggling Silva. So a couple of varying reports across the newspapers this morning. The Sun, which you haven't got to yet, is reporting that Pochettino's in the mix for the Arsenal job, which seems to be kind of plucked out of the sky for a back page. There isn't a huge amount.
You've got to go for it if you're Arsenal now, and if Emery is like on the thin ice that he's on, then you've got to just go before the Man United gig gets available, before one of the other world football jobs becomes available. If you're Everton, you should be going to Mauricio Pochettino and going, we'll give you the money that Jose Mourinho is getting that you should have got. And look, we're starting to spend some cash here, and our team's not that bad. But if you're here, you can own this city. You can go toe-to-toe with Jurgen Klopp.
No, I don't think Mauricio Pochettino is going to go for the Everton job.
Why not? It's money.
He's beyond the Everton gig at this point. He's just about... Arsenal are just about in the frame to get Mauricio Pochettino. And even then, I'm looking at the reports, I'm like, you're not going to get this guy. Like, he's waiting for a big fish at this point. He
hasn't had a big fish yet. He turned Spurs into a big fish, you know?
He's ready to take that Bayern Munich job at this point. He's ready to take that potentially that Real Madrid job now. And I know he'll never get the Barcelona job because of his Espanyol links, but Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, that sort of calibre of club. Manchester United is calibre of club. Like, Manchester United's recent failings, of course it impacts where they stand in world football, but they have so much in the bank for them to still attract somebody of Mauricio Pochettino's calibre. I've got just a terrible, and I've been saying this since the summer, since before David Luiz and Danny Ceballos kind of gave me stars in my eyes, that Arsenal are in very big danger, actually falling to the point where they can't actually attract a manager like Mauricio Pochettino and falling through the 6th place trapdoor at this point. Like, they need somebody of Pochettino's calibre to keep the superstars that they have in their squad, albeit superstars who are underperforming massively at the moment, but to still keep them in the club and get them playing a lot better. And it does actually, in fairness, play into your point that they need to act right now.
Yeah.
There's not thin ice. The ice is gone at this point. Emery is just floating in ice-cold water right now. It's over. It's all done. There's no way that this thing can be salvaged. And they need to just act, and they need to get it done now. They need to look across North London and look at what Daniel Levy's done and said, right, pull the plug immediately and install somebody else immediately. Things need to happen very, very quickly here for us to move forward. And maybe it is going to be Arteta. That is what the back page here is going, but it seems to be Arteta or Pochettino, and then Massimiliano Allegri is the other real contender, it seems, as a potential replacement for Unai Emery.
Yeah.
Unai Emery is not a dead man walking. He's dead. He's not walking. He's lying on the floor.
Is Allegri the right person either?
He'd probably be better than Unai Emery. Who knows?
But that again, you have to stop thinking.
You're comparing. There's a clear, defined number one on the list here, and it is Mauricio Pochettino. I really struggle to make a case for Arteta or Allegri.
Arteta's supposed to be some kind of genius that, City have earmarked to be the next Guardiola, and Arsenal had him basically offered the gig the last time, and it all fell apart without him knowing about it. So I don't know, if I was him, I'd be reluctant to come back. The Mirror this morning, Ole Fury was turned up to 11. This is, he wants to sub everybody off. Silva, Emery and Pellegrini on the brink. West Ham obviously available. Chris Hughton apparently was mentioned in dispatches for that one. And Donnacha O'Brien is retiring, aged 21. Two-time champion jockey Donnacha O'Brien has announced his retirement from the saddle at the age of 21. O'Brien, son of Aidan, is set to concentrate on a new career as a trainer. So obviously they've been building up a small group of horses, he says, at Longfield Stud, and he will hopefully grow from there. So wish him all the best of luck. Fairly phenomenal career. And we had him in studio last year on Friday Night Racing, and he was just talking about the difficulties of making the weight. So it was fairly clear that this was probably going to be his last few races over the last few days in the saddle. Just the difficulty was too much. You start to grow, you like to eat.
Yeah, we had Joseph on after the Melbourne Cup a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that he's 6'1". That's big for a jockey. The fact that he's even made it as far as
incredible.
Quite an achievement, and actually achieving what he has done in the saddle. Back page of the Sun, as I mentioned, is this story about Pochettino. Poch, you're back. Gunner's eye on Maurizio as end is nigh for Unai. There's been a couple of things that have come through over the last couple of days on different websites and papers. Like the Time story seems to have a bit of thrust with the Athletic story about Sir Chips Keswick perhaps walking away from Arsenal has a bit of thrust to it. It's hard to see where the meat is in the Sun story about Mauricio Pochettino. Shock contender for Arsenal. Gunners Chiefs not convinced they can talk to the former Tottenham boss. The thinking at the Emirates is that they still want to give Unai Emery until the end of the season. A decision will then be made in his long-term future, but senior Gunners figures have been shocked by the speed of the team's recent decline. This is something that you and I both know. Of course you're going to be shocked by this. So Arsenal's directors would have no problems appointing him despite his Tottenham link. Is that new? Of course they would have no problem appointing him, because he's a better manager than Arsenal have had since peak Arsene Wenger. So I don't know. I'm not buying any concrete link at the moment with Mauricio Pochettino. Of course there is going to be speculation around him because he's a top-class Premier League manager who's available, and Arsenal need a manager.
For nothing.
For nothing.
You're paying off Unai Emery, and that's the money that you would have had to spend to get somebody like Pochettino. So that's probably good enough for them. Did the back cover come off that? It was an ad, I guess. So the Guardian this morning, I think this is, and they are Abramovich as involved as ever, says Chelsea chairman. So Roman Abramovich is not going anywhere. Roman Abramovich has rejected bidders who think they can buy Chelsea at a bargain price and remains just as involved in the club as he ever has been, chairman Bruce Buck says. So Buck has done an interview here, and there's another way you can go back and find out how Roman Abramovich made his money. It's pretty interesting backstory about when he did get rich. Essentially came from nothing, and Abramovich still has not got a UK visa. The British government delayed renewing his visa since 2018, so he hasn't been at a home match since then, and it was part of the retaliation against Putin. Remember the Novichok poisoning?
Yeah, that's why. He hasn't been a citizen since then, basically.
This is all part of the British government's response to Vladimir Putin. There's a new drama coming out about that actually in the next couple of months, which is going to be really good. And Book says, so far as I know, absolutely not. To the contrary, I've never heard a word from Mr. Abramovich. Let's get this ready for a sale. Now, in fairness, if you're Bruce Book and you were putting the club up for sale and Abramovich had told him that and you were doing an interview with The Guardian, the last thing you would say is, yeah, we're looking for a sale. I mean, come on. You don't actually need to say that. You can send out that signal to the relevant people pretty easily. You can actually ring them up and say, here, you've got about 600 billion. Would you like a football club? I see some of your cousins have football clubs. Would you like one? That's how that would work.
Back page of the Herald this morning is Solskjaer. We never gave up. He's backed United after thriller ends in draw. And they're also doing a 5-part series, the Herald, of the best dubs of the millennium. So it's 50 down to 40 today. We've got the likes of Cormac Costello, Eamon Fennell, Mossy Quinn, Senan Connell in the mix today.
Who's 40th? Give us the 52.
At 50, we've got Eamon Fennell. At 49, we've got Darren Daly. 48 is Collie Morn. At 47 is Johnny McGee. Paul Casey's at 46. Senan Connell is 45. Paul Curran is 44. David Henry is number 43. Mossy Quinn is 42. And then Cormac Costello is 41. So he's the first of the real current bunch of Dublin players. I know Darren Daly's listed there, but somebody who's been involved more than that is Cormac Costello. So the top 10 is just going to be 10 players from the current team.
Yeah, Cluxton's going to be number 1, right?
Does Kieran Wheeling make the top 10?
Conley? Ahead of Cluxton? No, Cluxton has to be number 1, doesn't he?
I would say so. I would say, like, this is...
number 2. Of this millennium, is it?
Of this millennium? Yeah, like, I don't know. If you put Jack McCaffrey and Brian Fenton as your top 2, I'd be like, fair enough. Because for me, they've been 2 of the best dubs to watch. Diarmuid Connolly would be in that bracket as well. But then when you get into why Dublin are 5-in-a-row champions, it's because of Stephen Cluxton and Kieran Kilkenny. And then the rest are, I don't want to say window dressing in comparison.
You've got Kilkenny ahead of Fenton.
I would say in the way, the importance to Dublin, the heartbeat of Dublin, it would go Cluxton, Kilkenny, then Fenton, then McCaffrey.
I'd have Fenton.
And then Brogan probably. Connolly would probably be down the list in terms of the importance to Dublin. He's basically missed 2 seasons and they still won all Irelands with him. But when it comes to the best Dublin footballers, Connolly could easily be number 1. Yeah. So it depends on the kind of way they've decided to do it.
Fenton's arrival coinciding with the 5-in-a-row, obviously not just cause and effect, but like it's like, well, hang on a second, I mean, come on. Didn't miss a game with that. Right, so I have the Telegraph for you here, and it's rescued by the kids. Solskjaer relief as United's youth grabbed 3 goals in 7 minutes. So look, I mean, I think that in training this week you can look around and you go, okay, I'm going to give these guys a chance now. I'm going to make them the core of this for the next few weeks and just ride that energy, you know?
I suppose you could do. Like, to go back to Kerry's comments, he wasn't exactly impressed with Brandon Williams yesterday. He didn't exactly put in a performance that blew him away. But it's amazing what a goal can do for a 19-year-old's confidence, I guess. And like starting him at left back now for the foreseeable future probably wouldn't be the worst decision in the world. I just don't see that this is like a crest of a wave that Manchester United have suddenly stumbled upon. They've drawn with Sheffield United. They haven't beaten Manchester City or Liverpool here.
I know.
They got out of jail with like this bizarre upsurge.
Sheffield United pretty good
in the middle of a game. They're excellent. They're a brilliant team. They beat Arsenal. Not saying much, but they have beaten some of last season's top 6 already this season. They deserved to win yesterday. Like there's just too much that you could be concerned about in that opening 70-minute performance.
We haven't even talked about
Manchester United even kind of considered a possibility that this is the start of an upturn in fortunes.
Things we haven't talked about yet. Chelsea being beaten by Man City. The return of Jose Mourinho to the Premier League. We can talk about all this with Kenny Cunningham in 5 minutes' time, but we would like your views on them. Hashtag OTB AM. You're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio, more than likely if you're listening to us through the Go Loud app, or perhaps you're on the Off the Ball website and you're just listening to us as a radio station there, or alternatively you're watching us this morning on youtube.com/Off the Ball.
The back page of the Irish Independent is Cock-a-Hoop Boris, the Kings of Munster. got the story of the cock coming our way at around 8:30 this morning. It's probably, we don't have enough time at the moment, but been researching all morning to find out the backstory of Paddy. Paddy is the cock. Magical Maher takes centre stage as underdogs to throne Ballygunner. And also on the back page, you've got United must be brave and wave goodbye to Solskjaer. That's Eamon Sweeney. If it took until I died, I was going to get it. That is Liam Brady winning the cross country yesterday. And Leinster must find finishing touches, says Rory O'Connor.
I've got 2 cups this morning. One is for Lemsip.
I was thinking that the people watching and listening, people listening today might notice a few octaves lower.
Yeah. Like, oh.
Is there a blame? Was it a heavy weekend or was it winter is here?
I was the opposite of a heavy weekend. Yeah.
What are you suffering from? Is it man flu, full-blown man flu?
No, not yet. Just a heavy head cold, which is worse because it's like you feel as bad as if you've got man flu, but no one has any sympathy for a cold.
No, absolutely not. There should be no sympathy for man flu either.
Well, they should. You should have like 3 or 4 days off work.
No, just be contagious, wander around with everybody else. That's how it's supposed to work.
That's what I. Well, look. Everybody refuses to open the windows in our office or to at least turn on the air conditioning. They're like, oh, it's too cold, I'll put on a jumper. That's why it's the perfect temperature for all of the germs to coalesce, meet, breed, multiply, and smear everywhere.
You won't even let a bit of heat in the office. It sounds like a bit of a tyrannical regime you're running there.
I'll blast the cool air to kill all the germs.
Who cares about germs when you can be warm and snug, living in your own invisible filth all around you? It's amazing. It's a great feeling in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, and then you die very quickly.
It's worth it. You can put it on the tombstone.
Chiseling away at your immune system.
He died on whatever date of 2019.
A worthy cause, because we wouldn't open the window at work.
Irish Examiner this morning is the Brendan Voyage. Brendan Maher celebrating yesterday. Boris Elise win 4-1, somebody was saying in the office this morning. Well, actually, it was Phil saying it, that Brendan Maher and Co. had said it on TV yesterday. Yeah. That is insane. Like, you would have thought...
I'd also just like to point out that he was in the studio during the week, talking about being a club hurler. Like, this is definitely one of those bits where the more of the chatting you do about stuff, the better it is for everybody. Certainly, he's got a great story. You should listen back to that podcast if you missed it.
Tapping over 20-yard frees as well yesterday. Love to see that from a centre-back. There's so much to love about the Boris Elise team, actually. We'll get into it later on.
He's in great shape.
Yes.
We walked into the office like, holy man, you are in great shape. There's no rest for the wicked. I guess at this stage, when he's come back from the cruciate, to have the last year that he's had, and even a little bit longer since he's back from the cruciate, he's been sensational. Because you're right, you're at that stage of your career where no one would in any way give you any grief if you decided, right, look, I've done everything, been the captain, won stuff in the past, but to knuckle down and get back to what you did, that was fairly sensational.
It must just be something in his mindset that when it gets taken away from him, he must have missed it so much, as you can imagine, he probably did. And saying to himself during that period out, this is never going to happen to me again, or at least if it does happen to me again, I'm going to make sure I get the very, very best out of my career. And it's turned into a special 2019 for him, which is great. You can't but be happy for the man. The Irish News is what we want to bring you next. We're learning all the time, says Solskjaer. They're going with the story from Bramall Lane yesterday. Even though the big part of this game is a negative and we were disappointed with it, the overriding feeling is a positive because of the character. That is a quote from Solskjaer yesterday.
Yeah, I can see why you would try and accentuate the positive. I just wanted to mention Ronnie McNamee did an interview with Cairo Kane over the weekend, which is worth digging out. The Tyrone footballer talking about his own battle with depression and how he came through that. And then he's obviously the all-star fullback this year, and talks in fairly interesting detail about the value of the club to him and just how difficult it is for the club to survive when they have, they're not a huge club, so 3 or 4 players make the county panel and suddenly they're not playing games, and the whole rest of the club ends up being punished a little bit for that. So apart from the honesty about the mental health story, there's also great stuff in it as well, so you should just dig that out. Cairo Kane, you can get it on his Twitter feed, and worth having a look at. Now, reaching his potential with Sheffield United in the Premier League, Enda Stevens talked about the developments that made it possible. Here he is talking with John Duggan. It's going up right after this.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. OTB Gold, the very best of off the ball.
Are you crazy?
This is OTB Sports Radio. This week on OTB Gold.
The treatment was tough. You were given every encouragement and every chance to survive it.
The art of beating people is obviously you've got to have the trick, we know that, and it's got to work.
Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy?
I start to have no control over my own mind. I went one stage 12 days without sleeping.
Cultural and personal memory and involvement with these murders and with this violence.
OTB Gold, the very best of Off the Ball. Weekdays from 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Just through kind of trial and error. Made mistakes, you know, when we time with Aston Villa. I wouldn't say I was the best professional out there, and I told on the pitch. Although I got my chance and I played a few games there, I never really sustained that level of performance that warranted to be a Premier League footballer. And I kind of it came to a stage where I was really fighting for my career and the chance to get down the Portsmouth came. And from there on in, it was kind of all positive, you know.
What did you do differently? Was it training? Was it work ethic? What was it?
It was a bit of everything. I needed guidance, and I didn't really feel I had that guidance at Aston Villa. I was a young kid that came over from Ireland, and I needed kind of more help than what I received. Now, I'm not saying it will put it down to a manager or a coach or anything like that, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual and the footballer. But I was just kind of one of them players that needed more help and needed tough love maybe, and I got that with Paul Cook. He just gave me that tough love, and he backed me, and he got me as fit as I could, and he coached me. He told me really how to play the position, especially left back. I played there most of my life, but I only really started to learn the position inside out when I played under him. He's that good of a coach, and then I just went from strength to strength. Then, and I kicked on again with Chef U, and I learned a whole different aspect of the game under Chris Wilder that's benefited me even more so.
Yeah, that's Enda Stevens there talking with John Duggan on Saturdays Off the Ball, and Kenny Cunningham is with us. Kenny, I don't know if you heard the end of Enda Stevens there, but it's interesting that players are teachable even when you think it might be too late, that good players are coachable season in, season out, and good managers are always looking to improve their players. And Enda Stevens is a testament. He's the stereotypical now Irish late bloomer, but geez, what a player at the moment.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I did actually just hear the last minute there. It's really interesting. Some have actually resonated with me because just personal experience, even though obviously I've played some years before I ended up coming over from an Irish background. Generally in terms of maybe the coaching part of the game, maybe the tactical side in terms of understanding the game, learning about the game, your own position on the pitch there. You know, don't necessarily get a huge amount of that before you head over. My experience was with managers, just maybe parents or people who are stepping in looking to help out, but generally wouldn't be able to give you too much for help in terms of your basic understanding of the game. So when you go over to England, you hope that naturally comes, and people would expect that's something which is it's an automatic, it's a given when you go into a professional setup, but it's not always the case. You can just get yourself in couple of situations where maybe you're playing under a manager who isn't particularly good coach, maybe hasn't got the time to put in those kind of 1v1 situations with the player, and you can, you know, time passes 3, 4, 5 years, you be in your mid-20s and you haven't had that kind of football and education that Enda is speaking about. And we're not even now talking about in terms of your physical condition, diet and all those type of things, you know, so very interesting to listen to him. It didn't actually surprise me, but thankfully that he had that experience where kind of Paul Cook opened his eyes. He's obviously driven himself on. He must take a bit of credit for that himself. Obviously pushing himself and looking to better himself. And then Chris Wilder again, that was very interesting in terms of opening his eyes up as well. So it is important if you get yourself in the right situation at the right time. Good managers, good coaches, not necessarily good managers, yeah, but good coaches, good number twos, who are prepared to put the time in with you on a load of different levels, then your game can really come on leaps and bounds, and probably Enda's a great example of that.
I'm always a little bit surprised that these Premier League squads are so big, and there's actually a very small number of coaches who are ultimately working on the coaching. Like, there isn't really a position group. There isn't really so there'll be a goalkeeper coach and there'll be a bunch of people working with the underage teams all the way up. But then there might only be 2 or 3 coaches working for the entire first team squad. When you think about it, like, everybody benefits from a little bit of one-to-one. Somebody who's like just looking at you and just being responsible for your position group. Do you see that happening at some point down the line where somebody goes, actually, I'm going to have 10 coaches here and we're going to spend... is it a trust thing? Why did that not evolve in football the way it has in other sports?
Well, I think it has, It probably has in all honesty. I don't think you necessarily need you're probably exaggerating there a little bit in terms of the 10, but I take your point in terms of having enough personnel on the ground. Some managers are very hands-on. Maybe the likes of Guardiola and a number of others are actually coaches. Some very good managers are very good coaches and do the work on the training pitch, potentially a little bit of one-to-one. And it's not necessarily all about a bag of balls over the shoulder, dragging the lad onto the training pitch and working with him after training time and time again. Although that helps, I actually benefited from that very early in my career. I had 2 very good coaches when I first went over to England at Millwall. Steve Harrison, the ex-England coach, and Ian Evans, who was actually mixed number 2 for a long period of time, actually put a lot of time with me in a 1v1 situation. I really benefited from that on a load of different levels, clearly from just like listening and learning and just practically doing the work on the training pitch, but also the fact that coaches are prepared to invest in you in those kind of 1v1 situations, like a young professional, kind of no reputation, nobody really, but the fact they're actually prepared to put the time in me and try and better me, that kind of helped me confidence as well. Now, at the bigger clubs, more personnel on the ground, that shouldn't be a problem. But I think clubs do it, and it's not necessarily on the pitch, It can be in the video analysis room, sit you down after the game on a Monday morning, 20 minutes, let's have a look at your game, like a bit of visual analysis. Sometimes on the training pitch you're talking to people and they haven't got a clear picture of what you're saying. For me, far better to sit them down in front of the TV screen and break their game down, go through certain aspects of the game. But the principle's still the same in terms of being proactive with your coach. And so, yeah, I think it has come on, in the modern game, particularly at the bigger clubs, but at any level, all the way down the leagues for me, that kind of 1v1 interaction between coach and player is still invaluable.
All right, 12 minutes past 8. We're talking with Kenny Cunningham this morning. We want to talk about the sack race because it is effectively sack season now, as we're 5 weeks out from...
Santa's sack.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, some of them get massive payoffs. So I know traditionally you'd be like, oh, you don't want to talk about anybody getting the sack, but like sometimes it's 12 million quid in cash in one go. You're like, thanks very much.
Exactly. Good point. That is a great Christmas present. Pochettino's had his already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they actually pay you cash. I don't know if Daniel Levy will just keep you on the same... Oh, yeah,
they just roll out on the table there in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, one of those second-hand car salesmen roll the cash.
Back up the Briggs Ally truck. Arsenal, let's start with them because Unai Emery seems to be a dead man walking. The mood music has been pretty grim for a number of weeks, but it seems to have tipped over to the point where it's an impossibility that he's not going. The question is when.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument now. I was actually still a little bit optimistic prior to the game Saturday, actually, Ger. Just felt as if there was a run of games coming up for them where potentially they could put back-to-back victories together. They're getting a couple of key players back from injury. And I watched the game Saturday. I looked at their team, and I generally quite like the balance of the team. Not across the back three. We know the problems they have there. David Luiz in particular, kind of Socrates of making a lot of mistakes. But they put a midfield two on the pitch of Guendouzi and Torreira. And a lot of people have been screaming for Torreira to come into the team. And myself included. You remember the impact he had when he came into the Arsenal team last year. People saying, this is great, this is what we need, a bit of physical presence there. Like, you're a going hitman now on the pitch, like sorting people out, making tackles, that really kind of physical presence. But I tell you, I was so disappointed with his performance Saturday. Never took the opportunity, was falling over, appealing for free kicks. Almost got bullied by the Southampton players in that central midfield player. He was a midfield there. He was a big disappointment. And someone else I thought coming back into him, Bellerin, Jared, that right back. I've looked at him a couple of times, and bless him, he's in his mid-20s. When he first came into the Arsenal team, he was the quickest things on two legs. He's such an athlete. He was absolutely phenomenal in terms of how quickly he could get from box to box. He looks as if his that acceleration is gone. The injuries he has, I don't think he's going to get back to where he was. So that's another problem for Arsenal. Yes, some great attacking players on show, but in terms of mentality, in terms of the confidence the players have in the manager, whether they're still listening, whether the relationship is as strong as it should be, I'm not too sure. Those kind of those questions are going to be asked now going forward. And yeah, he's clearly under more pressure. I thought he'd be under less pressure after that game the weekend, but the way his team played against Southampton, where they were dominated, should have lost that game. The pressure is clearly only going to build. It's only about probably timing, Jerry, in terms of, it's not like sometimes the case he's got to go. It's sometimes the case of who's out there who's out there at this moment in time to bring in. Tottenham recognised Mourinho as the man who was available at this moment in time, went out and got him. Whether that person's there for Arsenal at this moment in time, I'm not too sure. They might just have to wait a little bit longer, potentially even end of the season, before that kind of perfect fit becomes available.
That person, I think everybody would agree, Kenny, could be Maurizio Pochettino if you have your pick of everybody, but there's a good chance Maurizio Pochettino perhaps doesn't want to go to Arsenal, and that's fair enough. In your opinion, if it comes down to someone like Allegri or someone like Mikel Arteta, is that a decision that you make now, that you get out Unai Emery and get in one of the two of them?
Well, it depends how badly things are behind the scenes. And I think if his relationship's broken down between him and the players have kind of lost confidence in him, have stopped listening, well then I think for me it's better to get him out, even if it's an interim appointment. Freddie Ljungberg's there, Mertesacker there is the football club, almost like an interim manager before that type of manager becomes available. You're talking about Allegri's available at the moment. Arteta, you'd have to prize him out from Manchester City, possibly at the end of the season. Vieira, even if France, I wouldn't rule out, although he's only been over there a year, potentially at the end of the season. But you're right, these things take time. I don't necessarily feel if you've got to get him out immediately, but certainly if you feel as if the whole thing's broken, then possibly he needs to go, and an interim manager needs to be put in between now and the end of the season.
Is Pochettino the right man for that job?
No chance.
I mean, why not?
Chance. I'd be very surprised if he actually took another job in England. For me, I've probably gone on record before. This was before he was sacked, saying that eventually if he does go, and I thought he would go. I didn't think it'd be as quickly as this. I think the fact Mourinho was available, Levy jumped, didn't want Mourinho going to another club over the next maybe couple of months.
Would he do a good job, though, Kenny?
I just think his bond is that strong with the club, his relationships are that strong amongst the players and the support base. He strikes me a particularly loyal person, Pochettino. I don't feel he'll jump from Tottenham to another English club. That's my kind of gut feeling. I feel as if he'll go abroad if the opportunity presents itself. There's a job at Bourne there at the moment. I'm not too sure how keen he is on that particular job. There's an interim manager in place there. But for me, that must have been an attraction to go to Bayern Munich for a period of time, and then potentially to bounce back to another English club. Then after that for me kind of makes more sense than him immediately jumping, albeit towards the end of the season or starting next year, to another English club. We're only probably talking about Manchester United here, I suppose, if we've ruled Arsenal out of the equation.
Do you think Pochettino's getting jealous looking at Jose Mourinho giving Dele Alli a big hug after the game, turning him into the superstar that we know he possibly can be? He was speaking after the game kind of glowingly of Dele Alli, and in the newspaper this morning, Miguel Delaney has kind of good bits on what Jose has previously said about a number 10. He said, I like a number 10 to score goals, and I like a number 10 to get into the box. And it turns out that Dele Alli could be that perfect number 10 for Jose.
Well, he has been. He has been that number 10 when he first came into the team under Pochettino. That's how he played on. That was kind of called a modern day number 10. Not somebody who's constantly looking to get the ball into feet and link things up, but somebody who could actually race, run the channels as well, kind of arrive into the box, can finish, and he had the kind of physical presence, real kind of athleticism to him. And that's what he did for us in Tottenham jersey. Remember 2 goals famous game against Chelsea midweek. Wire Hart laying crosses into the box, with Azpilicueta arriving late at the back stick, two-headed goals. I think they won the game 2-1, and he was absolutely phenomenal. But he's gone away from that a little bit. He's kind of played in 1 or 2 different areas. Obviously, injuries have hampered him, but you do sense as if Mourinho feels this Ali could be a key player from going forward if he can tap into that kind of ability in that position. For me, it is his actual best position. Then he'll be onto something. But yeah, must hurt Pochettino a little bit. Must be an odd feeling from actually looking from a distance, looking at this thing develop.
Because he knows that he has that potential to get that out of them, and he's well,
he's got it. Pochettino's got it. I don't think it's a case of Pochettino's looking and saying, "Oh, if only I'd have got a bit more Dele Alli." I think there's other things at play. He's had a lot of injuries during that period of time, which I think has kind of held him back. We're talking about Bellerin at Arsenal, but I look at Ali, I still think physically he can get himself back to the level where he was, just a little bit more now in terms of confidence, and actually get him into the area of the pitch now, which kind of best suits him. And looking at Mourinho, he went for kind of 2 holding midfielders at the weekend. That was interesting. Dyer, it was, and Harry Winks was in central midfield, just sitting behind the ball, real pace on the flanks, Moura and Son, and Ali in that preferred position just behind Harry Kane. So even very early first game into Marino's reign, you just kind of seen that template in terms of locking down the centre of that midfield, don't vacate that area at the pitch, pace down the flanks, a real kind of structure, not a defensive structure, but more of a slightly more conservative structure in terms of how he's going to go about things.
West Ham are terrible though. It's and they conceded 2 goals. They were put on the rack of points in the second half. Obviously, going forward, and we've spoken about Dele Alli already, there's clearly an upshoot there. They have the players to do that. Is there a sense here at all that Mauricio Pochettino's potentially left behind a defence that needs a bit of work, that Jose Mourinho has a lot to do in terms of getting them back to a top-tier defence in terms of keeping clean sheets, in terms of keeping teams out at this point? Because that second half obviously had a few shaky moments.
Yeah, it did. It'd be interesting to see how he sees it, Mourinho. A lot of people telling me Alderweireld out the door potentially, Vertonghen, Danny Rose. Wouldn't bother me, Danny Rose, to be honest with you, some of the comments he's made. I think Davies is a decent replacement there. Sessegnon there he's got as well. I just feel as if I'd like to see him keep hold of Alderweireld. I'm a huge fan of Alderweireld, but again, he's not getting over the ground as quickly as he was a couple of years ago, but he's a vastly experienced defender and a good defender, and I have a feeling Mourinho might try and protect him a little bit in terms of maybe not opening up the team so much, not sending those fullbacks necessarily as far and as wide, high up the pitch, just be a little bit more compact, that defensive unit, and actually protect your centre halves. Even for Tongan, you can make this argument a little bit more. That lack of pace, that half yard which they haven't got now, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to throw them out with the garbage. You can keep in the team, use their other qualities, but protect them a little bit more in terms of that defensive cover in front that I'm talking about, those two kind of holding midfielders, and also those full-backs from the side, just holding their positions a bit more and being a little bit more compact, so not squeezing as high up the pitch and maybe as expansive as they were before, where the likes of Alderweireld and Vertonghen were at times defending 1v1 kind of counter-attacking situations. I don't think they're getting to the stage they can't do that anymore, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to throw them out. It'll be interesting to see if Mourinho just tinkers the team a little bit just to protect those players. It's centre-half. He's got Sanchez, young fight there as well. So I don't think it's a case you've got to go out and sign 4 new defenders. It might be just a case of just tweaking things a little bit defensively just to accommodate the players in terms of where they are at the moment.
It's kind of tough to actually think of many centre-backs so far this season, Kenny, that have been widely lauded. Of course, like last season we had the best centre-back in the world playing in the Premier League in Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, Liverpool's clean sheet record this season has been poor. That'll be used as a stick to beat them with. And almost when you look through the centre-back performances over the course of the weekend, Fernandinho was one of the ones that stood out. It has been hard to kind of pinpoint the centre-back or the centre-back partnerships that have really been solid and that have really been performing above expectations so far this season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Owen. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, in terms of partnerships, yeah, you're absolutely right. In terms of defensive units, you probably look at the Sheffield United unit from last night. John wasn't playing, and Jagielka came back in last night. But John Egan, Jack O'Connell to his left, and Basham as a defensive three. A lot have been talking about in terms of how they've been getting forward and overlapping runs, etc. But in terms of how they've defended as a trio, I've been very impressed with. There probably hasn't been too many better than them over the course of the season, Owen. And certainly Van Dijk and another. Yeah, absolutely. For me, again, a little bit surprised Gomez hasn't got a lot more playing time there, but that's pretty secure. Manchester City is probably going to cost them the title this season in terms of the problems they have at centre-half. You're absolutely right. And even Chelsea, the game against Chelsea yesterday, you can see Chelsea probably haven't got a settled central defensive pair in either, although the likes of Rudiger, Christian can come back into the equation there. So you're absolutely right. No matter what level of the table that you're at, whether you're fighting relegation or competing for Championships, Europe, etc., kind of a settled defensive pair, or if it's a three, if that's the case, who understand each other, you've got a bit of cohesion there between them, kind of settled in over a period of time. It certainly is a massive asset to the team.
Yeah, that Manchester City-Chelsea game was an interesting one. I saw Gary Lineker match of the day had the stat that it was the lowest possession statistic for Pep Guardiola in his entire club career, which is quite something given it's a game that they won. It's obviously not something that's going to make Chelsea fans that happy or anything like that, but it's obviously not something that is kind of a change of tact at all from Manchester City, but it is obviously a situation that Chelsea managed to exploit, where they managed to get on the ball a bit more. Of course, the incisiveness of Manchester City going forward is what won them the game in the end, but in midfield, that Chelsea trio is fairly formidable.
Well, I disagree with you. I don't think it's very formidable, the Chelsea. Are you talking about the Chelsea three in midfield?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like Jorginho at the base of that midfield, Kante and Kovacic. So I think I just saw the extended highlights of this game, the Manchester City-Chelsea game. I think the one thing that stuck out for me, Jorginho, I'm going to say it again, Jorginho at the base of that Chelsea midfield, it cost him. Lovely midfield player, lovely pass of the ball, gets all their kind of pass and movements going. But the problem with him, and I'll keep saying and keep banging this drum, he can't defend, he can't run, and he can't tackle. And if you analyse those two Manchester City goals at the weekend, for me, he was the problem. If you look at the first goal, he gave the ball away cheaply at the halfway line. That can happen. But look at his recovery. Immediately doesn't make the first tackle, gets himself to the edge of the box, and it's a really awful. He throws himself in front of De Bruyne. He's no intention. It's a token tackle. It's like a tired tackle. He doesn't want to stay in his feet, plant his feet, and look to get a block. Secondly, when Mahrez runs at the full-back second half and cuts on the inside, when you play that system with one holding midfielder, when your full-backs get driven on the inside and they force the winger onto the inside the pitch, your holding midfielder has to get across there and come into contact. And I can guarantee you 100% Kante is playing that position Saturday when Mahrez cuts inside the Chelsea left-back and gets his head up. He's not looking towards the goal, he's looking towards Kante, racing towards him, looking to make a tackle or at worst force him across the pitch. And that's the problem with Chelsea are going to have going forward for me. Jorginho at the base of that midfield, great in possession. He can start off all the Chelsea attacks. Out of possession is an absolute liability. No fault of his own. He can't run, he can't tackle, can't track runners. And that for me was shown at the weekend. He was heavily involved in those two Manchester City goals, and it's going to come back and bite them time and time again. I don't think Chelsea can win a league title potentially going forward with at the base of that midfield. Kante's got to go in there. For me, you're talking about an excellent midfield three. An excellent midfield three, Chelsea midfield three for me is Kante, the base of that midfield, and then you take your pick in front of that. Mount, Barkley, Kovacic, Loftus-Cheek. They've got some great number 8s in the team who can get forward and get goals. But the fundamental problem for me for Chelsea going forward is always going to be the base of that midfield, how Lampard sees it. And the longer Jorginho spends there, when the big games come around, the games that really matter, he's going to be the weakness in that team and the base of that Chelsea midfield.
Yeah, I guess I meant that in the sense of when they're on the ball, and that's why they managed to clock up that possession statistic at the weekend. One of the big stories from this morning, when we talk about the sack race, when we talk about potentially managers coming in, is of course at Everton, Marco Silva. It's only a matter of time, you'd imagine, before things start to go wrong for him when he loses his job very, very soon. David Moyes in the mix this morning, Kenny, to go back to Everton. What's your take on that?
Wow. I think it's an obvious one on in terms of obviously his history there. A lot of good times there, good memories, good association with the club. I wouldn't rule it out. A lot of water's passed under the bridge since then, but I'm sure David Moyes would make the argument that, look, he's been around a different club, different experience. He's a more rounded manager, more experienced manager. He might even claim he's a better manager now at the age that he is now than when he was and potentially when he left Everton Football Club. And I think that's a fair argument as well, Owen, but I really wouldn't rule it out. Silva's under a huge amount pressure there, but that's a big job. I think there'll be a lot of managers interested in that job. I wouldn't say he's the favourite, David Moyes, but I think there's an argument to a certain extent to be made for him going back there. But my gut feeling tells me no, but in football, absolutely nothing surprises me.
Yeah, I'm with you. No is the right answer, I think. How close is Pellegrini to getting sacked? Because obviously we know those owners are notorious for having thin patience.
Impatient, but they don't like giving their money away, Ger. I'll tell you that from experience. I had him up at Birmingham. I'll actually kill them to write that big fat cheque to get him out the door. He's on a huge salary there. I actually couldn't believe it. Somebody told me how much he was on. Again, he's another one. I think, Ger, they're looking around saying who's available, who do we actually want? Is he available at this moment in time? If not, probably keep paying his wages. Not as if potentially they're going to be looking at relegation, or certainly they shouldn't. So again, I think they'll just probably sit till the end of the season and wait for that ideal candidate. And if they're doing their job, Ger, actually put a few feelers out, get on the phone, trusted lieutenants, whoever it is behind the scene, make contact with people. Are you interested in a job here in potentially 6 to 8 months? Unless, of course, the same argument that I've made with Emery, unless, of course, the changing room just kind of downs tools just stops playing for the manager, the relationship's broken, then again you have to look potentially just to get him out the door. It's almost becoming a bit toxic, and just get an interim appointment in. So for me, very much the situation at West Ham than probably that you're looking at with Arsenal over the coming kind of weeks and months.
Yeah, they're getting sucked into that relegation zone is the only thing.
Appoint Rafa Benitez is the answer here.
Rafa's getting 13 million netto in China. I can't see him turning his back on 13 million netto.
Would the West Ham have 13 million of the sort, 14 million? Like, is it just more hassle than it's worth? Does Rafa Benitez look at West Ham with a sense of PTSD from Newcastle United? Is it a similar sort of club in that regard, that they have loftier expectations than they really should?
I don't think it's similar. I think there need more money available to him at West Ham, and of course that's the only why he take the job. There's no way West Ham are going to give him the job and he's going to take it. And he doesn't have a guarantee of a certain amount of money to spend. I think he'd be a great appointment. A huge fan of Benitez in terms of like being able to tactically set up a team. I think there'd be a huge amount of respect for the players towards him. He's got a bit of gravitas. I think Benitez is probably one of the few managers who does when he walks into a dressing room. So clearly, yeah, it's a great show. Could he walk out in the club and shine? Yeah, absolutely. Practically every other manager does. I don't think the money would be a huge consideration, Jay. Surely not. You know, dropping from 13 million to 8 million, sure there'd be a little bit, you know, a bit of a check written somewhere along the way, like so. And I think Benitez has still got I think he's still motivated to go and manage at the highest level. So I think that's an interesting possibility, and it wouldn't surprise me at some point when Benitez does jump that maybe it's back to the Premiership that he comes.
All right, good stuff, Kenny. We'll leave it there. Thanks a million, man.
Cheers, lads. Take care.
8:30 this morning. You're listening to us here on OTB AM, on OTB Sports Radio. Remember, you're watching us on youtube.com/off the ball. However you're getting us, we're glad you're here with us. Leave us a comment, tweet us using the hashtag OTB AM. We'll get your comments in a couple of minutes' time. To hurling, here's Oisin Langan catching up with Paddy Stapleton after Borrisolee's win in the AIB Munster Club Hurling Final.
I'm Paddy Stapleton. Borrisolee are AIB Munster champions. First of all, tell me how that feels.
Oh, just, I don't know, ecstasy. Like, you know, you can't describe it. This is what you play, like, when you play, you're home for days like this, and you might be getting for years, and then when it comes, it's just indescribable. So you can't put into words what it means. And for, like, the explosion after the match, even I felt the county final was just the mecca, you know, because it was achievable at the time, and this was about, but geez, because it was such a close match, that just blew the whole thing up again. Like, it was unreal, just such a high level. Like.
This question might be one to ask after, but I'll ask it now anyway. You won All Ireland's with Tip, and now you've won a provincial title with your club. How does the immediate after-match feeling compare?
I suppose they're totally different things. I suppose the inter-county is like a box office, you know, a big box office film that all blows up all over the country, but this means so much. It's like a small little thing, your unit, your own little crowd here, and just the people on the field, you know everybody. It just makes it that bit more special. But like, look, I suppose I'm looking at perspective. I won on All Ireland quite early in my career, and now this is what I was chasing all my life. So maybe if I had won a county and provincial with the club early on, I'd be chasing it, and that'd feel bigger. But right now, after so many years at it, this just feels on top of the world. Like,
listen, we always knew you were a better hurler than the brother, but you're a better analyst than the brother as well. So analyse that game, because look, it would be too cliched and too easy to say you outworked him. Yes, he did, but there was a good plan in there as well, because he looked comfortable all throughout, even though they led for the most of it.
Yeah, they did, and like, we knew they were going to catch us out in different parts. Like, I know I was playing corner back there times, and there was going to be good ball coming in, and that's the way they play. But I think it was about limiting that, like that they wouldn't get an awful run as that every ball was coming in. So I suppose you could see that we were hitting a lot of long balls down. We know we've big men, and if they're supposed to have a spare man behind the ball, that he'd be more in contact than other games trying to get it away from him. The more you try and keep it away from centre backs, the more space they have if they're spare. So I suppose that was the big thing. But again, that's all rubbish unless lads are willing to throw themselves in, anticipate the hard work, and it's the anticipation of it. A lot of people work hard, but they work stupid, and they work too late. But our lads are anticipating, and you see there, we're broken down for the goal now. I'd say we were disappointed with that, but apart from that, we were probably in their face most of the time when they had the ball.
Yeah, because they like to work it through the lines, and you stop that, you stifled it at times.
Yeah, and I think that's the anticipation. People might say, that's only a small thing, but that is, if you don't see them passes coming before they come, a couple of seconds beforehand, and you're on the way to the next receiver, then that's all blows up in your face and you get unlocked. But I think the concentration that they showed throughout the match, I think that was fairly evident.
Come here, you're up there with the old lads in Borrisolee now, the lads who won in 86 and 87. How does that feel?
It actually feels so surreal. I'm telling you, look, hearing about it so long, and none of them ever held it against anyone in the parish. It's just, you know, it's over all that time. But I met so many of them here today already. It's like they're nearly delighted to have that monkey off their back more so that they don't have to talk about, and they're just so happy to see us pushing on again.
Paddy, well done today. Congratulations. Go and enjoy it.
I will, Oisin. Thank you.
Great stuff there from Paddy Stapleton and Oisin Langan after Bursley's victory yesterday in the Munster Club Championship. Now, one of the things that captured the imagination in the aftermath of that was the trophy celebration. What happened?
We got... I think Paddy de Kock became a national icon. It wasn't Boris Ali that kind of stood in the headlines on their own. Paddy came along.
Cock a hoop, Boris, the Kings of Munster is the headline on the back of the Irish Independent Sports section this morning, and there is a cockerel flying high over the
Paddy.
trophy.
That is Paddy. I'm not sure is it shortened from Patrick or Padraig or what, but Paddy is what he goes by. There he is, playing with some children around the game. There is a great little synopsis on SeamusJKing.com of the story of the cock. Now, there was George Gruma on the GABO Twitter account yesterday explaining it, but just a little bit more depth in it. It says, the cock is synonymous with the Boris Ali Club and occupies a prominent place in the club crest. There are a number of stories to its origin. One is that on achieving unity in 1948, the Boris and Ilee players were so proud that they would strut confidently, regardless of the opposition, onto the playing field like bantam cocks. Others pointed to a much older origin to the days of the faction fights. In the glory days of the early 50s, Paddy Darcy of Ilee used to sell the team colours on match days, and he used to have his assistant, the cock, resplendently dressed up in the club colours. With his business for the day complete, Paddy would attend the match parading around the field with the proud and colourful cock by his side. So all the way from the 1940s, 71 years later, Paddy the Cock finally has his day in the sun.
Right. You just like saying cock, don't you?
Got me thinking, what are the most famous birds in world sport?
Go on. What else? What have we got? Our famous mascots or just birds?
Well, we'll start with birds. We were in Lisbon, of course, last year, and we got a tour around the stadium, and we were told about the Benfica eagle, which swoops around the stadium before the match. We're looking to see where the eagle ended up. Apparently, it escaped last year since our visit to Estadio da Luz. Usually the protagonist of a pre-match show, but flew straight out of the stadium before a game against Vitoria, which is a bit of an unfortunate circumstance there. It did come back though, however, so Paddy the Cock does have competition from the Benfica Eagle as the forefront bird mascot in world sport. In terms of other animal mascots that aren't birds, a very famous one, of course, is the Cologne goat. Anybody who's been there would have noticed it. Some harrowing information that came to light very recently, though, at the start of this season. Hennes, the goat, Cologne's long-serving club mascot, has retired. This was at the start of the season, a blow early on for Cologne. Long live Hennes the goat, the 8th, I should say. Cologne's popular mascot, a 12-year-old goat, is stepping down after an 11-year reign due to health reasons. Hennes, an ever-present at the team games, who had overseen 2 relegations, 2 promotions, and a first European campaign in 25 years, has age-related osteoarthritis and will see out his remaining days at the local zoo. So Cologne Managing Director Alexander Verla told the club website, "We do not want our club mascot ever having to stand in pain in the stadium. After promotion and the upcoming new season, it is not a perfect conclusion and time for Hennes the 8th to enjoy his retirement." So that's one for animal rights activists who might have been concerned about Paddy the Cock.
Don't worry, he's had a great life. I mean, seriously, is that the only picture we could find? What the hell?
It's a fantastic one. Hennes looking resplendent in his Cologne colours there.
But like, I mean, come on, did we spot that? Did we? What the hell? Like, was there no picture of the goat without that? No?
I didn't pick that. I didn't pick that image. I was then thinking, like, do you need
to be off the air? Like, if you know, luckily we're outside the BAI regulations, but we will be off the air for this slot.
Are they better than non-real life mascots, actual animals? I don't think so. I think there's 2 reasons why they're not. One reason is Partick Thistle, who of course came up with this mascot last year, Kingsley, or the year before, I should say. One of the most that is not Kingsley. That is Gritty from Philly, which was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen until I'd seen this from Partick Thistle. It's going to be a second, but if you haven't seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's the big starfish yolk that scares the shit out of you every time.
Is it a thistle?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a thistle,
but it doesn't look like a thistle.
We'll see it in a sec. It's a terrifying prospect. I will say shield young eyes because they might never be the same.
It's too late.
Again.
It's too late. That image of the goat. What was the other one? The Philly thing.
That was Gritty, who became their new mascot, and everybody was like, "What the hell is this? This deranged orange thing? It looked like a morbeg with big eyes."
Yeah,
was what this thing came across as.
It's all right, no?
He just became a a meme instantly, as did Kingsley from Partick Thistle. Does Paddy de Kock now become a meme? I'm not so sure. I think he's a bit more niche. There's a bit more nuance about him.
Well, the French rugby team used to bring Cox with them everywhere.
Yeah, of course they did. That's the French.
They would release them onto the field on Lansdowne Road back in the day.
I forgot about that, actually.
The lads would obviously coming over on the boat, stick them in the back of a car, and then smuggle them into the stadium and then throw them out.
It's now that is animal cruelty right there. There is Kingsley. There we go. Horrible looking fella.
Wow.
But, almost fitting for a club like Partick Thistle.
Wow.
The unibrow just kind of makes it.
It's not even anything like a thistle. Thistles are green.
And that's
it.
That's it.
Right. Let's move on quickly. It's 8:39. Boasting quite the collection of jerseys, David Myler explained how he ended up signing his shirt for Zlatan. Have a look.
I've always had this thing that I carry a Sharpie marker in my wash bag, just in case if I ever do swap a shirt. And I saw him, and Zlatan had actually said, like, could I give him my shirt, because he wanted to have one from every team. So basically, then I said to Zlatan, "Oh, do you mind signing it? It's actually still like manky dirty because I couldn't wash it." And he asked me to sign my shirt.
This is like the best revelation we've ever had on radio, ever. David Myler on how Zlatan Ibrahimovic asked him for his shirt.
No, but it was just one of those that happened to be there, and it was just so Zlatan type. He was like, "No problem. Will you sign this shirt?" Like, do you know what I mean? And I was just like, "No, yeah, no problem. No problem." And there I was signing away. But yeah, the rest of them were just from swapped games, whatever.
Failed to prepared to fail. So of all the shirts, maybe not even the ones. Do you have a treasured shirt? Is it maybe your first Ireland shirt? I remember seeing you in an ESAT Digifone shirt. I think a photo of it years ago.
Oh yeah, that would be. Oh God,
highly treasured.
The ESAT Digifone one, you'd have to ask my dad. But I think that's like the Munster final back. I reckon I'm only about 10 or 11 then. So that's going back like 20 years ago. Most treasured shirt. I have a few, like of ones of my own. Obviously, the Wales game. I believe you have one in the studio. I don't know if you know that story.
Go on, tell us again. For those who have not heard it before, go on.
Well, my dad turned up for an interview with Joe, and he just brought my Ireland shirt, because you get two shirts a game, and so I have one in England and he had one in Cork, and then he came in and he just gave them the shirt, and I was watching the interview after kind of going, that's my Max worn shirt.
In fairness to John Myler, I think John came in, saw all of the amazing stuff that we had here and went, I'll get you some of David's stuff, and sent it to us afterwards in the post. So David since has obviously been on a couple of times gone, hang on a second, what? And because there's boots as well, the blue ones behind you there. John, good morning to you. That was good stuff.
Thanks, Ger. And it's interesting that he said that he gets two shirts. I never knew that players get two shirts.
One to keep, one to swap.
Yeah, that's
or one to auction.
I don't know how long that's been going on for as well.
I think it's a good while for the international team only, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you get two every Premier League. You don't get to keep your shirt in the Premier League, you just throw them away, throw them back, do you?
They give them to a supporter in the crowd, usually is what happens.
That's what Dele Alli did the other day.
Yeah, you're back, John. You were right. Jose Mourinho, genius. It's already established.
Well, look,
come on.
We'll talk about this in the Peaks and Pits after 9, but just to go through the sports news of the day, Manchester United had youth to thank for earning them a point in the Premier League yesterday. Brandon Williams, Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford scoring in a 7-minute second-half spell as the Red Devils drew 3-3 with Sheffield United at Bramall Lane. The Blades were 2-0 up now, but in the end they salvaged a point through an Ollie McBurney goal in the 90th minute, ruled correctly by VAR. United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was very unhappy with his team's first-half display.
I could have changed 11 players at half-time. That's so simple, really. Apart from the keeper, because David kept us in it. You wouldn't, and he would have saved the last one, not for a slight deflection on Harry's thigh as well. So, no, that was a tactical thing. But today wasn't about tactics. It was about the desire that we lacked in the first half.
Tonight, Aston Villa entertain Newcastle United at Villa Park. Steve Bruce going back to Birmingham, 8 o'clock is the start time. Arsenal manager Unai Emery West Ham boss Manuel Pellegrini and Everton's Marco Silva, they're all believed to be under pressure now to hold on to their jobs following their team's respective displays in the Premier League over the weekend. Mikel Arteta and Max Allegri being linked with Arsenal in the back of the papers. They've only won once, the Gunners, in the top flight in the last 2 months. Now, Tipperary's Borrisolea, the Munster Club senior hurling champions for the first time since 1986. They edged Ballygunner of Waterford by 112 to 111 at Porky Rin. Brendan Marr was taking the freeze. The All-Ireland inter-county winner said conditions suited Boris.
Yeah, it was gritty, and to be honest, like during the week when we heard the weather was going to be bad, we saw it as a positive for us because we have a physical team, and we said, you know, if we can get in these lads' faces and make it a bit dirty like that, we'll, and I don't mean that in a ill-disciplined way, but, you know, make it kind of gritty and we'll grind out a victory, and that's exactly what happened.
So breaking news, folks. Galway goalkeeper Colm Callanan has announced his retirement from the inter-county game. The Kinvara clubman at a number one when the tribesmen ended a 29-year wait for the All-Ireland senior hurling title in 2017. For the fourth year in a row, Galway's Kerfin, they're the Connacht Club football champions, getting the better of Roscommon's Patrick Pearses on a scoreline of 110 to 7 points in Tuam yesterday. The Kerfin skipper Micheál Lundy's thanked the fans.
Everyone in the parish Kerfin has some contact with a player on the field, whether it be a neighbour, a cousin or a relative or whatnot, but it means as much to them as it does to us, and probably the cup is as much for them as it is, because we wouldn't be nowhere without them, because there's days there in the dogfight, and as we're in dogfights there in the club championship in Galway, and probably just their support, they stick by us, and it just gets us over the line.
The Leinster Club football decider will be contested by Dublin's Ballyboden St Enda's and Éire Óg of Carlow. Ballyboden easily beating Garrigcastle by 3-14 to 12 points in Mullingar. Donogh O'Brien has retired from race riding. The 21-year-old who won 10 Group 1s was crowned Irish flat champion this year. He's to concentrate on training like his brother Joseph in 2020. More breaking news. England play New Zealand in the Cricket Down Under. This isn't good. A Jofra Archer tweet. A bit disturbing hearing racial insults today whilst battling to help save my team. The crowd has also been amazing this week, except for that one guy. The Barmy Army was good as usual also. And in golf, John Ram, the European #1, the Spaniard, won the season-ending World Tour Championship in Dubai. Rory McIlroy, lads, finishing in 4th.
All right, good stuff, John. Thanks very much for that. We're more from John a little bit later on for Pits and Peaks coming your way around about 9:10. Simon Zebo next. Here he is talking about his international future with Neil Tracy on Saturday night. We're going to be joined by Alan Quinlan after this. Have a look.
Going forward then as well, next year obviously Andy Farrell in charge of Ireland. Are you going to be speaking to Andy at any point, you know, putting a case forward for, you know, I'm available, I want to play for Ireland again?
No, I don't need to reach out to Andy. Andy knows my situation. If I continue where I kicked off last season, if I'm, you know, banging in tries, scoring, making loads of assists, you know, and doing what I do on the rugby pitch best, then, you know, my rugby will talk for itself. I don't need to do anything. I just keep enjoying my rugby and keep playing with a smile on my face. I'm still only 29, so if a call comes, the call comes. If it doesn't, then me and Andy, we have a very, very strong relationship, so I wish that man all the best in everything Ireland do.
And just finally, before I let you go, you did hint you've had a few sleepless nights over the last week or so. Baby number 3 in the Zebo household arrived. Congratulations.
Yeah, baby, no, Anthony arrived on Monday, and yeah, he's turned our world upside down for the better, and you know, I have 2 other children who are very, very happy with his arrival, and you know, life is good at the moment, and yeah, my family is very happy, so thank God for that.
It's Simon Zebo there talking with Neil Tracy in the aftermath of the game. Alan Quinlan, how are you?
Morning, how are you, Ger?
Let's just briefly talk about Zebo, not get into it too much. He's not going to end up coming back here at this stage, it looks like, and until the IRFU formally announced there's been a change in plans, his international career is over, right?
Yeah, effectively, unless Andy Farrell decides something different.
Even if he decides it does, David Yusufor ultimately deciding this.
Yeah, and look, I've said this before many times. I agree with it. I think if you open the possibility of our players going abroad and still being picked for Ireland, there'll be a lot could go, you know. So some people disagree with that, particularly after the World Cup. They think maybe it'd be better if some guys were playing in different teams and getting different ideas and seeing how it was done differently. So for me, if you change that, you're going to lose some top quality players out of the provinces.
All right, what about the actual game itself then? JJ Hanrahan misses a drop goal and gets criticised for missing the drop goal, gets praised for the quality of his play up to that point. What's the takeaway from this? Is it that we were going to win the game with a drop goal, or is it that, like...
The takeaway here is Munster made 10 clean breaks in the game. They had 10 offloads, 30 defenders beaten. They had 64% possession, 69% territory, and they were probably hanging on in the end. They were probably lucky, and Peter O'Mahony said it afterwards, that, it felt like a draw was a good result in the end. JJ Henry, I thought, was fantastic, and he deserves great credit for that. I thought his attack and his control, and you watch the talent, and you've seen the talent and little sporadic flashes over the years. That was his best performance. I thought he was superb, and it's, that's down to confidence and self-belief. And I think Game time, yeah. I think he got injured there against Ulster, so that hampered him a bit. That was the first time he'd started 2 games at fly half for Munster ever, I think, which is crazy to think that. I thought he was really, really fantastic the other day, and to get the conversion from the touchline. The drop goal in itself, well, very few of us in our lives will ever know what it's like to be standing in that position with that kind of pressure. It wasn't the hardest drop goal in the world, and unfortunately it ruined a fairy tale ending for him and for Munster. But when they look back at the game, they'll be disappointed with maybe some of the defence. They got a little bit narrow at times. But for me, and I mean this, I find it hard to criticise them in any way, because I thought they were fantastic, and I thought Racing were probably one of the best performances. It's right up there with the best away team performances ever in Thomond Park. They were magnificent for the quality of their execution, their attack, and the competitiveness of the breakdown and the way they defended. They were magnificent. Wenceslas Laurier made 24, 25 tackles, the open side for Racing. Anton Classon was brilliant, the number 8. Donncha Ryan, really good. So sometimes things that you expect from French teams, particularly away from home, is that they'll drop off, and their desire will wane a little bit, and you can see and it's not entirely down to the Irish connection there of Mike Prendergast, his coaching, because Rogers coached there before, and they have played well there before, but I think Donncha Ryan and Zebo, having 2 of them out in the field makes a difference to that attitude, and that. But they're a side that want to do well now in Europe, and they've the last couple of weeks they've hit form.
Is this about, and I hate this phrase, but is it about Munster trusting the process now at this point? Because we saw it like CJ Stander and Peter O'Mahony offloading. They offloaded more than Racing. They kicked less than Racing. This is different to the Munster we're used to seeing in previous years.
Yeah, it is, and you might argue, well, people want change, and people want more attack and want more fluency in attack, and like some of the line breaks they made were fantastic. The open space that players found themselves in. The end result is finishing a couple of those and having that anticipation for some of the lines of running. And there was occasions even then when they should have passed, when they cut back inside some players. So it's a little bit of, I think it was mentioned probably by Donncha Ryan last week in some stuff he was talking about cup rugby and going to Thomond Park, and it's about learning to play cup rugby. And Munster, I just think, is there an argument to say they should have went back and just been conservative and tried to squeeze the life out of Racing? But I don't think you can do that. I think they've made a good positive step forward, and it's the defensive errors probably maybe that cost them in the end. Racing are always going to be a very dangerous side, and the set piece was good for them. Their line-out was really good under Donncha Ryan, and Munster lost 3 crucial line-outs. So it's somewhere in between. I think you have to kind of, if they'd won that game, there'd be so many things that you could take out of it, say that were positive. But the problem is, because it's a draw and now they have a mountain to climb, you're thinking, maybe they should have boxed Clever a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't think so though. I think it's a positive thing, isn't it? The step forward, the evolution, because it would result in a semi-final defeat again potentially. This now has a greater ceiling. But the ceiling may not be this season.
You want to try and get out of the group, but I thought there was a few kicks at times. Mike Haley was brilliant, but sometimes his aimless kicks up the middle of the field, and you're kind of giving the possession back. So that kind of relentless squeezing I'm talking about is retention of the ball. So at times they turn the ball over too easily, and that stuff they look back on. And Racing's transition into attack was really good and really accurate after that, and that's where they stretched Munster a little bit. But no, it's a very, very positive step forward the way they played. Any neutral watching that game would think, wow, that was an amazing game. It was brilliant, it was full of drama, great excitement throughout and some great tries scored. But the problem for Munster is now they've Sarries home away, and then they've Racing away and Ospreys at home, and there's a maximum of 20 points there. You know,
looks like Racing
realistically, and on a good day, 9 or 10 points is probably what we're looking at the moment, unless they buck the trend and beat Sarries away or beat Racing away. And if they get 10 points in their 2 home games, that just leaves them on 17, which is hard to get out of the group with that.
Yeah, you need losing bonus points and maybe try scoring losing bonus points as well as the...
Yeah.
Hard to see full Saracens teams, it seems.
Well, yeah, you possibly will. They play Bath away next Friday night, so it's interesting to see will Mark McCall put back in all of his English players, all the England internationals. Saracens are in a position now where they've beaten... If they win their 3 home games, and they will beat Ospreys away, I think, with a bonus point, they could potentially get to 20 points. So do they need to send a full-strength side to Thomond Park, given that they may have to manage the time for these internationals in the coming season?
Well, sure, they're not going to release them for the Six Nations, so they'll have them available the whole time. It's going to be very interesting.
That
6
will
months,
not happen. That will not happen.
Do you reckon there's no chance?
No chance. No chance. I can't see the players. I know you want to be loyal to your club, but you're in a very, very risky situation there. There may be a bit of rotation for the Italian game and stuff like that, where that might be...
It's just chain pulling from... From Eddie Jones, is it?
Yeah, it is a little bit,
right.
yeah.
What about Leinster's performance at the weekend? Talking pre-match, there was some hope. Neil was chatting on Friday that he thought that maybe if they play well enough, there's a potential bonus point away. That was the quality of team that they had, and that was the difference. But actually, that just turned into being an arm wrestle. Yeah,
I think again they were a little bit sloppy. I think going into a 10-point lead after 20 odd minutes, I think it's a brilliant start away in France. And some people, the headlines and people talking about it have been a bit critical, saying they were poor and they should have been better. Going to France against anyone, even disjointed, it's like they're top of the table in the top 14, which is a bit deceiving because of the period through the World Cup where a lot of internationals are away and they were probably less affected. So I think it's a very, very good win. And they're in a great position now because you can take stuff away from that game and say, well, we need to play a lot better.
Yeah.
But to go there, it shows how good a side they are. They were sloppy at times, for sure. There was chances that they didn't take. And what they did show was character and that kind of winning mentality that you need to win games on the road in Europe, particularly away in France. And when you do it a couple of times, you believe you can go back and do it. So that's kind of ingrained in the Leinster players. Similar to the performance of Ulster Friday night, sometimes you've got to grind it out. So they scored a try near the end, which was ruled out for Gary Ringrose blocking with Sexton, which would have put the kind of icing on the cake and given it a better picture. But he was very good, Sexton. He got man of the match and he was superb. But I think they know they need to be better. And it kind of puts them in a great position now with those back-to-back games against Northampton.
These games at this stage are about winning, not about playing well. You want to be playing well, quarter-final, semi-final, final.
Well, you'd love to play well and win at the same time.
You can't peak all year, can you?
No, you can't. And I think that's what going to France is sometimes. Obviously, if you really need to win the game and it's a do-or-die situation, you have a brilliant performance, a win there, the elation of that is far greater. So there would have been a satisfaction for Leo Cullen, his coaches and players after that game. And, it's a job done. They got the 4 points and got out of there.
From a back row's point of view, is Max Duggan now locked in that jersey in Leinster at the moment, and it's up to somebody to really... It's up for him to kind of drop off in that form for anybody to...
Yeah, it depends. They have so much depth there, and Caelan Doris was the starter 2 weeks ago until he got the concussion. So Max Duggan is a very, very talented player, and I think it is a crucial year for him now if he wants to step on and maybe get Ireland recognition and get capped.
Because he was in the mix, he was in the rumour mill when there was potential injury worries at the end of the World Cup that potentially Max Deegan could be the man called.
Yeah, he's a very talented. He's a good player. He's big physique. He's athletic, and it's an opportunity for him to maybe push himself forward. And the more games you start, you try and hold on to the jersey then, and you make it hard for the coach to change there. But you see with most teams now, there's so much rotation. They have so many options there as well. But it is a period of time now that, you know, he starts those Northampton games, and people start saying, well, he's the one that takes that number 8 jersey then every time, and it's up to himself now and get consistency and make an impact. And I thought he played really well on Saturday.
Ulster's victory on Friday night feels like a long time ago now, but again, that's the type of level of consistency that we're looking for from them, is to put a result back to back with the away win. So they're sitting on 8 points with only a points differential of 6, which is impressive to be winning close games.
Yeah, it is, and I think given that you know, there was no Jack McGrath and Sam Carter was missing, and they're getting a bond. Could see it was amazing again. His form is superb, and when he's fit, healthy and well, the impact he makes in the field is just phenomenal. And John Cooney, you know, I think his energy and the zip around the field, and he was brilliant. So it was a really good win, and I think that'll please him because it's a strong Clermont side. The problem they have is they give Clermont a losing bonus point, which will come down, you know, to maybe it's for them now winning back-to-back games. They've got to go to Harlequins, win there, and then
that's doable, though, right?
It is, yeah, it is doable, and it's amazing. A couple of years ago, Jerry, you were talking about an Ulster side who were brittle and vulnerable mentally, and I think they're building a little bit of steel about them now. They still have progress for sure in the execution and the quality and stuff like that, but I think they're showing a lot of character and togetherness, and they're getting a little bit of continuity in selection, even with a couple of the injuries they have. So I think they'll be very, very pleased at where they're at the moment.
Connacht were right in that game for 45, 50 minutes, and ultimately in European competition, you see this where a team is nearly ready to step up to this level, but get burned off in the last 15, 20 minutes by a superior force.
Yeah, I think they were so positive in the way they tried to play, and maybe at times they should have been a bit more pragmatic, because they made a few mistakes which led to turnovers and Toulouse pressure then after that. But I thought to be that brave and go to Toulouse says a lot about the positivity in the group, given the amount of injuries they have. Like, they're the worst affected with injuries at the moment, and I thought they were fantastic. You know, they were under the pump for sure, but they showed incredible character. And you think that before the game, you fear the worst, don't you?
Yeah.
You think it could be 20, 30, 40 points here if Toulouse get into their flow. So there was so many positives for them to take away from that.
Connacht kind of need to go through this as well. This is where you get your experience.
Yeah, a little bit.
Next year,
for sure.
Next year you go back and you realise, okay, we did this and this and this.
And I said this to Andy Friend when I chatted to him last week. Getting Kieran Marmy to sign, maybe Bundy Aki, strengthening the squad more, keeping them together is what they need. And
how big is that strengthening thing, the strengthening project that needs to happen for them to become a quarter-final team in the Champions Cup, do you think?
Well, they have a fair few overseas players at the moment, so getting, you know, your top-class international marquee signing to go to Connacht is still a challenge for them, and I mean that respectfully. Developing their own players is really important, and depth in the squad, and their depth has been really challenged at the moment. And I think, so this period of all the injuries, the Montpellier win last week, the performance in Toulouse, that's really, really important for their experience going forward. And you hear managers talk about that. Well, we learn a lot from our defeats, but there's a lot of inexperienced fellas. There's a fair bit of experience there, guys who've been around a while. They're not all kids, but someone like Conor Fitzgerald starting to fly half there. He had him on 2 weeks ago, and his ambition and creativity and positivity is a massive boost for him.
Andy Friend made that point when he was talking to us about, you know, I look for people who've had a bit of failure somewhere, and so we get them here, and everybody kind of bonds with the fact that they've had a circuitous route. We were talking earlier on about Enda Stevens, you know, late in his career, somebody tapped him on the shoulder and said, you need to knuckle down. There was a bit of tough love from Paul Cook. His career exploded to the point where he's now, week in, week out, one of the best wing backs in the Premier League. Like, you can see how there's a recruitment. Maybe it's not the top quality internationals who are coming there. It's the next Bundy Aki. It's the, you know, if Severis hadn't ended up in court, he would be a Connacht player, and Connacht would have this amazing backline that everybody going, wow. So they've obviously got something going on in the recruitment that's working for them.
Yeah, it is, and if you, Fainga was brilliant for him on Saturday. Copeland was good. Caelan Blade was fantastic. You talk about John Cooney in Ulster, and he's been so good the last few weeks. So much energy from him. So it is that it's about getting depth within the squad as well, but it's also about Andy Friend, the way they play. I think they play with a positivity and a real creativity, and they're executing really well. So
that's going to attract people to come as well.
It is. Yeah,
it allows
it's the way
you to
they play. So the perception of Connacht has changed hugely in the last number of years. You think back to when they won the Pro 14. I think they obviously dropped a little bit after Lamb went under Kieran Keane, but I think Andy Friend has done a really good job in getting the best out of players as well. So for them to be getting, if their goal and challenge is to get into that knockout stages, you know, get into a quarter final, you know, so it's a process that these performances and these experiences will stand to them in the future.
Quick word on La Rochelle before we wrap up. We've spoken a bit over the last couple of weeks about French teams that aren't necessarily stereotypically French teams, but it seems that La Rochelle have kind of a thread of the classic French about them. The red card yesterday, a couple of yellow cards, ill-disciplined, like O'Gara, I presume. You could see it almost from his expression on the sideline, fuming with that sort of performance.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. He'll be fuming, and you know, Rog, as a coach and a player, would have incredibly high standards of himself and the people around him. So I think he's disappointed. They're in a bit of a rut at the moment, and I think you talk about the World Cup hangovers and reintegrating players. They had a lot of injuries, and it's a different sort of challenge for him and John O'Gibbs going in there, because La Rochelle have been pretty good in the last number of years and been in the shake-up for the top 14, but they've started the season really poorly, and I think losing at home last week to Exeter so much, that would have damaged them a fair bit. And even though they've done well in Europe, they've shown positive signs the last couple of years they've been there, that would have been, you know, kind of a dire, kind of dreadful kind of experience from yesterday. They've 0 from 2, and the discipline was that kind of typically French scenario. So he's a real challenge in his hand, as John O'Gibbs has, if they want to that kind of be ambitious in Europe and to grow, because that comes with those experiences. Some of the French teams, and we've seen different sorts of performances over the years where they don't really care about it. I think you're not seeing that kind of a scenario from La Rochelle, but totally disjointed, and I think the players were really, they need to kind of ask, I suppose they need to look at themselves in that scenario, because and the coaches, Roger's going to be under pressure, John O'Gibbs is going to be under pressure, and that's just the reality of it. They need to start getting results from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the top 14 table, if you look at it, is very condensed in that middle. So 2 defeats, you're in trouble. 2 wins, and you're right back in contention. So
yeah, and they've got to try and get a run going, but they're, you know, I think they were unlucky in some of it. They did try to play a lot yesterday, and they have talent. You can see if they just, it's the discipline with the ball and without the ball, being really sloppy, turning it over after 3 or 4 phases and trying stupid things at times, and that's what I kind of took away from that yesterday. And so I think they need to sort themselves out fairly quickly and try and get back on track.
I do want to ask you another French team. You said Racing was one of the best away performances you've seen at Thomond Park. Are they your favourites for the tournament at the moment?
Themselves and Leinster, I think, yeah. But Racing are the team that showed everyone the weekend. If they and you think there's no Nakarawa in that team, and how good he can be from as well. So I think they themselves, Clermont, Leinster are probably the top 3.
Finn Russell's try wasn't bad.
Yeah, through the legs, he nutmegged Rory Scannell, I think, and
on purpose.
He's he's trying to put a little grubber through. I think you're taking a chance when you do that. But look, Finn Russell, when he's on the front foot, is a superb attacking fly half, and yeah, so it was right up there. But I think Munster can take a fair few positives. The problem is that, you know, they've Racing and Saracens away from home. That's the challenge for them.
Sibo's reaction.
Stuart Barnes saying in the London Times this morning that Finn Russell should be 10 for the Lions in the next tour.
Well, if he's consistent over the next couple of years, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Stuart Barnes clearly winding up Warren Gatland.
Yeah.
Ruining Warren Gatland's day. He said, Gatland's on holiday. He's going to shut up.
Ahead of Bigger, Farrell.
It's
forward.
Farrell. It's Farrell, isn't it?
He says Gifted Russell can be Lions playmaker. Well, I mean, Farrell at 12, Finn Russell at 10.
It could happen, yeah, it could happen. He's a really talented player when he gets good quality ball.
I mean, Sexton obviously will be listening going, shut up, lads. What? What? He's obviously playing well at the moment too.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the Lions just yet, are we?
Yeah, it's a bit
it just came to my mind. When we're glorifying Finn Russell, we've got to put it into our context. We can't, as Irish people, you just can't appreciate it from afar.
Right. Anything else? Has there been a hangover in terms of refereeing and high tackles and all that kind of stuff, or is it like almost as if that never happened?
Not really. We haven't seen too much since the World Cup, which is
because they're obviously not like.
There's a little bit more.
Tackle's been perfected now. We can all retire.
It's like anything. It's like Steve Hansen said it at the World Cup. Players and coaches got to change and adapt, and I think that would have been something that all the coaches would have spoken to their teams ahead of Europe. I think there's been a bit of empathy around some of the grapples, and there hasn't been yellow cards given as many, but. So yeah, it is something that players look. You could have a period here, Joe, where you have yellows and reds for a couple of weeks, and then they might go. But I think players need to continuously be mindful of that now going forward, and it'll be a good thing in the long run, even though it's very frustrating at times.
Yeah, I've no doubt. Oh, look at that.
The phone is
It's your first day at school, is it?
First day at school, yeah.
First day at school. I bet it's Ron Lagar, is it? 10 past 9 this morning. Up next, John Duggan and Phil Egan are going to join us to look back at the pits and peaks, highlights and lowlights from the sporting weekend. Send us in your suggestions and we'll get to them as well. First, after this quick break though, you're going to hear Munster's Rory Scannell talk with Neil Tracy after Saturday Night's Draw.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
I joke about it now. I can count on the number of times you've actually told me you're proud of me.
Oh, it's true. My father, it was only when he was dying in Wexford Hospital 19 years ago, and he said to my cousin was there that he was proud of me. That he never said it.
No, are we blaming? We're not blaming you.
But
we're blaming Grandad.
Can I officially say I'm proud of him? But I'm proud of my daughter.
Thanks, Dad.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Rory Scannell was a strange feeling after a draw. This one could have gone absolutely either way. He was there to be taken in the last minute or so, but he obviously did well to get back into the game in the last 5 minutes. I suppose, how are you feeling after that?
Yeah, draw is always a strange feeling. I thought we showed some great character to get back into the game where we went down. I think it was 13-6 early on, and we got back to 21-14, and then great try there at the end, and JJ with an unbelievable conversion to tie us up, and we got in a position then to score again, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. But I thought we showed great character to get the draw in the end, but it's a bit of a strange feeling, as you said.
As you mentioned as well, there were a couple of occasions where you were down a couple of scores on the scoreboard, and midway through the second half it was a 7-point game, and it did, from where we were sitting, it just looked like you were really struggling to get a grip and get onto the ball for an extended period. But how did that change? Because the last 15 minutes or so you managed to get back up into Racing territory and control the ball and force a lot of chances.
Yeah, I think it was the territory thing. When we exited well and got in good field position down their half and got the ball back and got a bit of momentum going forward, we looked quite dangerous. But at times we probably struggled to get out of our half, and when they got the ball in there, they're obviously some massive men, and they got good momentum, and there's some lethal backs that they got the ball to. They were making a few breaks, but I thought our D was good to scramble, and we fought right to the end, and it's just a bit of a strange one.
Was the nature of the tries that you conceded, the three of them, they were individual pieces of brilliance from the Racing players, but allowing them to score them, is that a huge level of frustration for you?
Yeah, obviously we want to keep the scoreboard, the opposition, as low as we can, and as you said, a few moments of brilliance from a few quality players got them some good points. So credit to them, but it's an incredibly tight group now, and it's all to play for. I think we're both on 7 and Sarries are on 5, so it's going to be an exciting group, and we're looking forward to the next challenge.
And that next challenge, obviously, it sets it up brilliantly. Back-to-back games against Saracens. The first of those at Thomond Park, and then over in England. They got back on track this afternoon with a very good win. This is going to be a huge turning point in the pool stages.
Yeah, definitely. So they had an impressive win against Ospreys today, and we're taking it one game at a time, and we're looking forward to that challenge in Thomond Park in a few weeks. It's going to be incredibly tough, but we'll look back at this game and see what went wrong and what went well, and we'll try and get things right for the Sarries game.
All right, John Duggan and Phil Egan are here with us this morning to talk us through the weekend pits and peaks. Owen and John Duggan, you've got both Jose Mourinho down. I mean, you obviously must be in love with Jose Mourinho now. It's the perfect start.
Yeah, well,
as a Spurs fan, just in case anybody
anybody that hasn't followed me for any time of their life. Just look, it's a win. They hadn't won on the road since January.
It was mad.
It was mad. Dele Alli.
No away wins in the league since January. I was like, hang on a second.
She never got rid of Pochettino.
Dele Alli's brother wasn't there on the pitch at the London Stadium. It actually was Dele Alli. Played very well. Was closer to Kane in the match. They were very good, and West Ham were dreadful. But just from a positive perspective, I think what I've seen from Jose the last few days is probably what we expect from the honeymoon period. That he, his arm around the shoulder. It's hugs to everybody.
It's low pressure as well. It's kind of a low pressure gig, in a way that Man United wasn't ever going to be low pressure.
Madrid, and because Spurs are always expected to fail in the end. And it kind of suits the equilibrium of the Tottenham gig, and Jose Mourinho seems to be quite in sync at the moment. As somebody I think wrote about it, I think at the Athletic at the weekend, that Mourinho has kept Spurs in the shop window, and the reason why Mourinho is a peak for me this week is because Harry Kane is pretty much locked into the club now for the next 18 months, which was a real concern that he would leave, in my mind, that if this thing had just continued to drift. Don't think they're going to get in the top 4, but it'll all be about next season, and Harry Kane's going to be there for the next 18 months. So you'll have to, like Eric Dyer coming in, I don't know about that. The jury's still out on that for me, but Mourinho, I think, will make a positive impact, and they might win the FA Cup.
I've got a sneaky suspicion that there is going to be a huge race for 4th place this season involving Tottenham Hotspur. I think once Leicester City's decline eventually happens, then it will open the doors.
Chelsea's decline.
I don't think Chelsea's decline will happen. I think
Leicester City are going to finish ahead of Chelsea this
I think
season.
Chelsea will finish 3rd. Manchester City and Liverpool.
Why would Leicester City decline?
They're not going to. They've got no reason to. They've got one of the best managers, one of the best playing squads at the minute.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen though eventually.
Why? Injuries.
Well, injuries aren't pretty. I just don't.
One centre half gets injured and Jamie Vardy gets injured, then Leicester are definitely in
Still a good team though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Chelsea are
exactly what they were trying to do. Still have the identity.
Yeah.
Chelsea are just building, I think.
Yeah, I think Chelsea will just beat the teams they're meant to beat, but they'll come up short in those games against rivals. Like the other night, they're just a little bit naive at times, but they're certainly they're doing better than I thought they would.
Yeah, so I'd say at this stage it's Liverpool, City, Leicester, and then that 4th spot is up for grabs. And at this point, Spurs are on 17 points, Chelsea have 26 points. So there's a 9-point gap.
It is a 9-point gap, and it's something that I think that
2/3 of the season, 9 points, easily doable.
Yeah, it is easily doable, but it's also a huge gap. If Arsenal get their house in order, they're going to be in the mix. But right now, Arsenal and Manchester United have to be looking at Spurs coming behind them.
Well, yeah,
clearly a far superior manager to the one we have installed.
Spurs level on points with Man United at the minute.
Actually, probably, I'm not sure is it a better squad, but there's certainly an argument to be made that Spurs players, if you get the maximum out of them, or the maximum that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Far superior first 11, right? We all agree with that.
Spurs and Man U.
Spurs, Manchester United and Arsenal. Spurs are the best first 11 by a mile.
They do, but they've got a bit of the defence is not as strong as it was.
Yeah, but the Arsenal defence is not even a defence, and
so the thing about all this is Spurs have, whatever we think about Mourinho's appointment, Spurs have been decisive in the last 10 days. Arsenal are dithering. Spurs know what they're doing, whether it works or not. They've gone in there, they've said, OK, Pochettino, we love you, but you're gone. Mourinho, you're in now. Whereas in Man United, how long are Man United and Arsenal going to keep dithering about Unai Emery and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Spurs actually are a good shout to go far in the Champions League, just given that it's Mourinho. And they're pretty much into the last 16. Yeah. They'll do it this week. and then over 2 legs, it probably won't be pretty to watch.
No.
But Mourinho, if the draw favours them, could get to a semi-final. Maybe, who knows?
Istanbul. Miracle of Istanbul Part 2. I love the kind of the comfortable silence that just ensued after that.
Well, I
That'd
just
be a
wondered
horrible
about,
prospect.
I just wondered about, like, so when Liverpool played Chelsea with Rafa, was Mourinho the manager of Chelsea?
Yeah, ghost goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why were his team playing such bad football when they were like a good footballing team in those games? Why were those games? Because Liverpool were inflicting their tepid brand of clingy football on everybody.
But that's just Mourinho, though, isn't it? He plays,
Was it not Benitez?
It was both, because the first leg at Stamford Bridge was awful, and then obviously the second.
But that was a really so. Robin was Duff still in that team?
Robin, Duff, and Drogba. That was the triumvirate
with Frank Lampard. That was like a good footballing team.
So they were brilliant in the league. They're blistering teams in the league. Remember them hammering Norwich? Well, we were 5-0 or whatever.
All right, so Jose, I can understand
Jose.
it.
No, absolutely love Jose. Like you really don't know what you've got until it's gone, and that was the case with Jose Mourinho. Being on the television screens, it kind of helped us with that divorce for a while. But like, we never expected this. We never expected to be sitting here in the month of November chatting about a Jose Mourinho managed Premier League team. We should be extremely thankful that this has happened. Him coming out in front of the camera saying, "It's not about me. It's all about you, Jose. You know it's all about you. We know it's all about you." Dele Alli, the reason why he'll have a good season is because of you, even though it may have nothing to do with you. It could have been any new manager that comes in.
It is a much better job for him than the Arsenal job as well, because Arsenal's so much more of a basket case.
Yeah, but like there's not much that he could have done.
Would you have taken him as the Arsenal manager?
Of course I would have.
Like,
of course I would have.
Actively 2 weeks ago, or now that you've seen Spurs do it, you're just like, God damn it, I realise now.
No, actively, you would take Jose Mourinho. It just would have been an odd marriage, given what he said previously about Arsenal.
Tottenham is a better run football club than Arsenal at the moment, isn't it?
Without question.
The Kroenkes, like.
Would have been
They just got
interesting.
to a Champions League final. They're a better run football club, better results recently. The balance of power has shifted dramatically in 2 years in North London. I think everybody knows that, and I think
Arsenal might be more profitable though, and that's what Stan Kroenke cares about. He doesn't care about your Champions League final or that crap.
It's a matter of time before that changes, and before Tottenham actually becomes a more profitable organisation than Arsenal. That's what happens. That is the legacy of you being
football.
a pathetic excuse of a football club, which brings us to our pits, I think. If I may.
Go on.
If I may.
You're mid-rant. Keep it going.
Alexander Lacazette scores the equaliser at the weekend. Ashamed. I've never seen a player ashamed to score an equaliser before, but it was the emotion that sums up perfectly what Arsenal's performance was, what this season has been for Arsenal, and it is a complete and utter embarrassment, I think. You look at the statistics from the weekend, they had 61% of possession, I think, and still only managed 12 shots to Southampton's 21, which is basically...
Southampton had 21 shots?
Yeah.
Oh, like, how they didn't win, I'll never know.
That game. They should have gone 3-1 up multiple times. I think Amy Lawrence thought in her own head in The Athletic that they had 105 shots actually to go 3-1 up. It's like Unai Emery is just waiting at the bus stop and watching the buses go by and just doesn't want to hop on anything. The dithering the lack of thought in their play is something that you would have to scratch your head about as to how Unai Emery was ever considered for the Paris Saint-Germain job in the first place. How this guy managed to win 3 Europa Leagues in a row with Sevilla is absolutely astonishing. I know he had great help from the hierarchy in Sevilla, and it is possibly the
But is
the
it
best
cultural,
club.
possibly, that you go into England, you're learning the language, that kind of
No
thing?
football club should ever be sent out, John, to pass the ball around at the back if you have no passers in your defence. It's a very simple thing. I could play a game of Football Manager right now and I could see that Socrates' passing is 8 out of 20. So what do I not get Socrates to do? Pass the ball around at the back. Unai Emery works with this actual human being and has probably seen him miss 5-metre passes by a considerable distance. And yet Unai Emery is like, yes, this is the sort of play we should do because this is what is winning Premier Leagues at the moment. The playing out of the back, the style of football that Manchester City and Liverpool with their world-class players are committing to. Arsenal just don't have those players, and it is astonishing that he is still persisting with this. But it is at the point of no return now. It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter, even if there was a transfer window open right now and he managed to sign a ton of players, the players that are already there have completely lost it at this point. And the worst part of all is that Sir Chips might be stepping down. The one voice of reason you could always hear from in Arsenal over the last few years was Sir Chips Keswick would stand up and we'd all laugh at his name and he would say something and we'd be like, oh, Sir Chips Keswick is still around. It reports at the weekend that Sir Chips is in danger of actually stepping down, and that would break my heart as an Arsenal fan.
Right, like obviously that's. Did he do anything?
No, he didn't.
Grant, okay. Just wanted to make sure of that. There's a good line in Dunphy's piece today about how Ireland can qualify despite the fact that the draw is very hard, but only if we pick the right team. He's been speaking to Stephen Kenny, and Obafemi has to be in the team. I was like, does Obafemi start every game? It does not actually start every game.
Is Obafemi the new Wes?
I mean,
he started the weekend.
Yeah, he was good at the weekend. He should have scored.
But he doesn't start every game for the under-21s.
No.
He was a sub.
Oh, for Ireland,
He was a sub. So whatever Stephen Kenny was telling him.
Problem with Obafemi is he's picking up injuries, especially hamstring injuries. And
how's he getting on now?
Well, he played against Arsenal at the weekend. He should have scored. Cedric, for some reason, decided to put air on a pass, which if he just rolled it across, Obafemi had an open goal to go 3-1 up, and that would have been game over. But they butchered that was one of many chances they butchered. But every time we think, right, here he is, ready to get a run in the team, he seems to pick up an injury. So.
We'll stay with football. Your pit is Everton.
Yeah. Marco Silva in particular, because when he came to Hull, they were hopeless, and he gave them a chance. He actually got them into a position where they could stay up. One of their home form in particular, I remember they beat Liverpool that season at the KCOM, and then when it came to the crunch, they ended up losing a game against an already relegated Sunderland. But he had enough credit in the bank that people said, yeah, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Got the Watford job, started off well, then Everton were looking for a manager. Silva was linked with them. Didn't happen. Big Sam obviously got that job, but then Watford's form dipped and they all blamed it to do with the speculation of the Everton job. But it just turns out that he...
It's short term.
Yeah, he goes in and gets a few good results, but in terms of long term, it's not really working. I'll be honest, when they lost to Norwich, who before Saturday hadn't won an away game, had scored one away goal all season, which was on the opening night of the season, which incidentally was also on Merseyside, so obviously Norwich love Merseyside. But to lose 2-0 at home to Norwich, I was surprised there wasn't a statement released on Saturday evening that Marco Silva was gone. It's only a matter of time now, and Everton are back to square one. What are we doing?
With David Moyes.
Back to David Moyes, who did a brilliant job when he was there, but is he really going to be the answer? Are they going to just appoint David Moyes till the end of the season and then try and get a new...
Just get Mick McCarthy in.
Is it more structural, though, the club? Because Koeman didn't really work at Everton, and Koeman has worked in other places.
Well, Koeman worked for a while at Southampton, but...
Then he got his... well, the thing obviously that went wrong for him at Everton was the red Christmas tree.
Well, obviously, yeah. And every time you see Koeman...
Moyes wouldn't make such a mistake.
No, he wouldn't. But the problem for Everton is, yeah, they spend money on players, but they tend to buy players that you think, like the likes of Theo Walcott, Alex Iwobi, two Arsenal players who would be described as players with ability but never really lived up to it. Now, Iwobi is still very much at an earlier stage of his career, but Gylfi Sigurdsson, they went after him for months.
Yeah.
Paid 50 million for him. And
a lot of money.
Comes up with some good goals every so often, but is he really the answer?
A bad signing. Munster's lost opportunities, your pit?
Yeah, well, Neil was doing the game on a Saturday, the commentary from Thomond Park, and I was watching television, and you're just thinking that if you're going to be contenders to win the European Cup, you can't not execute that last play, whether it's a drop goal or a try, that you've got to execute. If you're going to be European champion, or are you going to be one of these sides that has a admirable, gutsy run full of heart to a quarter-final and lose it in France or lose it in England, and they're probably going to struggle now to get out of the pool. And I think that if you want to be champions, you need to absolutely kill that. Not blaming JJ Hanrahan, who had a good game. Just something to me says there was a lack of composure in that last few minutes.
80 games since they last attempted a drop goal, or since they last notched a drop goal. Peter Jackson in the Examiner this morning are saying, I think 2017.
Would Rodge have got it?
Well, he was in a more drop goal friendly era. It's got more and more less drop goal friendly as the years have ticked on by. It's not it's something that we tend to see that much anymore in rugby, which is a bit of a shame. It's a great art. It's a great moment of excitement.
Scored a drop goal at the weekend, but it looked strange.
It does. It feels strange when it happens.
Yeah.
Since they've attempted or scored one, did you say?
Since they've scored one, but I don't think there's been too many attempts actually to kind of shout about either. So is it 80 games since Munster last dropped a goal, he says. So they said that 80 matches and counting since Munster last dropped a goal in any competition. So that is a successful one. Centre Rory Scannell at the Cardiff Arms Park in the Pro 12, March 4th, 2017.
Will I do the John Ram thing?
Yeah, very quickly.
Where's the camera? This one? This camera? Look, right, folks, if you want to make money, right, you have 8 majors now in 2020 and 2021. John Ram will win a major in the next stage. He's going to be more than 8-1 for all the majors. He was 18-1 for the Masters before yesterday. Back John Ram to win a major. You can stop when he wins the first one. You will make money. Do you want to make money? Back John Ram to win a major. He is the real deal. He is a baller. He's brilliant. He's my barroom brawler friend. And John Ram is going to be the next superstar in golf. If he's not already, he will win a major in 2020.
There you go. What a great way to round out the show. John, thanks very much for that. You know, you come for the pits and peaks and you leave with some money-making advice. That is our lot this Monday morning. We're going to have a very special interview with Joe Schmidt on the way. Keep an eye out on offtheball.com and all our social channels for that one. We're live on air and online tonight from 7 o'clock with Monday Night Rugby, the football show, and much more. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, fully timestamped to make it easy to find out what you want from every morning 2-hour show. Remember, OTB AM is Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. We upload all our best bits to YouTube. You can Chromecast that or watch on Apple TV or your smart TV. Finally, we will be back tomorrow morning on OTB AM from 7:30. Good luck.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio